Oh, excuse me. I was just eating some popcorn from your local AMC with a plug for an Amazon original. Amazon on my AMC popcorn? How's it going, guys? We're about to go live with Mason and possibly Austin Tobitt. Atobitt, giving us the opportunity to be able to play around with those 6 bullet points. Count them, 6 bullet points that we need to make sure that you guys know the importance of being able to how to actually talk to a senator, a congressman, anybody that actually has some sway over where we are going in this GameStop saga. Professor Meatball understands. I hope you guys understand as well. Look, we can actually see him and have a pop filter at the same time. How's the audio right now? Now, let me see. How does the audio sound? Stop saga. Professor Meatball understands. I hope you guys understand as well. Hey, that sounds good. So, let's see. Need a haircut? I seriously do. Maybe tonight. Let's see. Clever guy. Wow. How's it going, y'all? So we are coming on hot and heavy here with GameStop still underneath trending that $180 support line right here, and with AMC pushing over here above the $9.95 level of support that it actually trended underneath momentarily for mid part of the day. But it's still hovering around that mental barrier of $10, right? As is the VWAP. So the volumetric weighted average price is also hovering at that $10 mark. So I guess it's exactly where it needs to be as of right now. Audio good, right? Audio good. Yeah, got notified. Throw some scissors in the chat if you got notified of this live stream. Paper clips if you had to be able to search this up yourself. We're trying to defeat the YouTube algorithm together, which starts with that like button. Appreciate all of you that have already pressed that like button. And as we go and continue onward with our day. Here are those GME bullet points that I was mentioning. So, GME bullet points for your local congressman. Here, it looks like Austin Tobitt has already started off right here. What are the issues? Funding of a government branch, government operations, accountability, transparency, enforcement, and then what are the solutions? Now, as of right now, it seems like these bullet points already have bullet points. We're trying to get them down to 6 bullet points to fully explain the situation from end to end. And that's one of the biggest troubles with being able to actually communicate with a big brain like Austin's, and then over to a person that actually can communicate to a congressman like Mason. And we will have him join momentarily. Let me actually give him the updated Zoom link here. Use this Zoom instead. Oh, that's the same one, I think. Great. Smoking or joking, we back. We was with a customer. Well, I hope that customer realizes that it's time to go. Cat DeLuca. Oh, can you grab the stack of cash and throw some hundreds at us to push those stocks up? Okay. Cat, it's because you asked for it. Here we go. So YouTube has taken away one of my favorite features, the snip features, and and that means that videos might just have a little bit more latency nowadays. Hold on a sec. Oh my god, don't go away. Okay, here we go. So, all right, you guys ready for this? This is the clip. Are you ready? That's going to be a huge mess to clean up. If you guys want your own prop cache, go ahead and go down the description down below. And thank you, Cat DeLuca, for that suggestion. Very fun. Please do put like music over that and make it a remix. I would like that to be the next song. So we also have pulled up the 4 pieces of major DD that we already had Austin Tobitt cover while he was on the show. but we do want to be able to, at the very least, remind ourselves exactly what kind of DD are we actually playing around with. Let me add a stream marker here. So BlackRock bag holders was his very first DD, I believe, 20 days ago, and then the everything short, which was from a couple of days ago, and then where Citadel has no close. Citadel has no close. I'm just going to search it here. That was from a long time ago. Okay, did it work? Did the stunt go up? Pew pew. Let's see. What's the closest line of support from GME right now? So underneath 180, we have a free fall down to 171. Now, it could be argued that there is a little bit of support. In fact, we saw it a little bit today around 177. Right, this is something that was supported here, and 176. However, I am a little bit cautious about that. Even though today it struggled at 177, this has been a more difficult because I have to go back multiple days in order to actually find this level of support. So go back, keep going, 177 there. The last time we were struggling at 177 was all the way back in this ascending level right here, all the way back in March 29th. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to be able to write this out, because it is a couple of weeks ago. Is my internet okay? I think so. Get this man a money gun, please. Peace Cobbler Adventure says, hey, mods in chat, what's going on? We have a couple of paper clips, unfortunately, because some people had to search for this. YouTube algorithm is pushing down this live stream. Best way to be able to try to defeat it, try and smash that like button. Like I said, that like button is really the only way to be able to defeat that algorithm, straight up. And I'll give Meatball a treat for the like you guys already gave him. While Reddit buffers, I guess, are we giving Reddit the buffer of death here? So Citadel has no close, BlackRock Bag Holders Inc., the everything short, and this is the order in which it goes in, and then finally Walk Like a Duck, which is the newest one from Mr. Atobitt. Make sure that he actually wants to, yeah, so he's trying to clear up his day to be able to actually make it here, so big props to him, but he's not like the man of the hour this time around. It's just that if he wants to come around, Mason and I will be talking about those 6 bullet points, which we're starting right here. Oh, Mason's already here. So there's Mason. Oh, he's working on this doc with us. What are the issues? Funding, accountability, transparency, and enforcement. And mainly, I think data transparency is the one that I'm going to fight the most on. Right, being able to actually understand where these shorts are is so important. It's so incredibly important. 15 minutes until power hour starts, and then let's actually see if there's going to be any volume at all. 4 million in volume seems a lot like yesterday for GME. For AMC, wow, 23 million in volume. Pitiful, tiny compared to yesterday. That's not a lot. With an average of 170 million on average from the last 3 months. So even considering the last month basically has just been a completely dry spell for both AMC and GME, their weighted average volume for the last 3 months is still way higher. Thank you, mods and friends, for answering Yunster's question. With all the hype on GME, why is the volume always so low? Well, actually, this is something that we already covered. We covered this briefly a while back, all the way from this morning. So the sideways trading was something that we covered earlier. Mainly, too long didn't read. It is either the forces of the DTC and the OCC trying to work against us, or it's going to be something a little more sinister. Okay, let's see. So we have Mason's picture. So what I'm going to do is, while we are gearing up, 15 more minutes, guys. Let's wait. Well, a couple more people show up. A couple more people smash that like button. I'm gonna make a thumbnail for Mason here. This thumbnail is going to be lit. Oh, excuse me. Butt in much? So as you guys can see, there is a chance for GME to start a brand new impulse wave right here. This, if it doesn't dip below the right here, it's trying to be supported by its exponential moving average and simple moving average. If it doesn't dip below those two values, it should be able to bounce up and recontest the VWAP, which is what we're currently waiting for. Okay, we add Mason. So this is how I make a thumbnail. Here's Sunnyvale City Hall. Mason. Handsome boy. Oh. Photoshop did not like that. Maybe Mason doesn't get a thumbnail now. So this is what happens when you try to select subject on certain types of images or like quality of images. I've realized that it just crashes Photoshop right away. So Mason, you saw me try. Unfortunately, I don't think with the image you sent me, I can select subject without crashing Photoshop entirely. Okay, so any kind of questions you guys have, let me know, and any kind of tickers you guys want me to look at before Mason shows up, let me know as well. He will be here at Power Hour, is what we said, later on in about 12 minutes. Christopher Katsov says, can you turn down your noise gate? Sure. Can I just turn off my noise gate? How about just, close threshold, way lower. Is that better? No? Okay. I'm just gonna turn it off. There it is. All right. Can I check AMC? Of course I can. So AMC traversing up. That's one of the things that we have to look at here, is that this corrective wave was basically just begging for a impulse afterward. This is the beloved, the important, the venerated George W. Now the tricky part about this is that you might assume that this lower W is actually that first part of this W, but actually the resistances have to be relatively the same. And this one is about 10 cents off. Oh, actually, hold on. Yeah, from 8, 9, oh, actually only 2 cents off. So you would have looked at this and said, is this a George W? Is this a double bottom? And one of the things is that sometimes the same psychology works for the triple bottoms here. So 3 times contesting relatively the same support and then taking off from there. After which it was a breakout from 988 to 1007. This is just the quality of not having enough volume here. Let's actually check that gamma ramp for AMC. So for AMC, it seems like there is a $3 million put wall at 13, right? These are in the money puts, which means someone does not want AMC to be able to raise above $13. Originally, what we were looking at yesterday and today were less than $1 million, like less than $500,000 worth of puts and strikes battling it out around $10 to $11. So that's why AMC is currently it doesn't have much of a gamma ramp either direction, but does have a put wall here at 13. The other side, in GME, this is something that well, we might have given it a squeeze of death. Hold on. So the thing about this, the thing that I wanted to show you was that we were starting to see it deep in the money calls again on GME. So as it comes back, let's check it out. Nope, still crashed. So let's instead take a look at the DDs that our friend Austin has written. SEC just approved 801. What? What? Uh-oh. What? This wasn't supposed to happen for a while. for a little while longer. I'm not sure whether to look at it on Superstonk or on RGME. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Superstonk, let's sort by new. Deep dive into whatever, blah, blah, blah. DFV tweet. Mods, if you can help me find a, oh, here it is. 3 minutes ago. 801 just went into effective immediately. Oh. Ah, yes! If you guys have been, oh man, okay, I'm getting a little excited. Hold on a second, guys. Let's temper it down. Let's bring it down. Don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. So we have been waiting for the 801 for a long time. Hold on a sec. Let's see. So SEC just passed 801 live. So this is actually not live. This is breaking. Breaking news. SEC just passed 801. So this is huge. This is the catalyst that we are majorly waiting for here. Breaking catalyst. So this once again is the ability for the SEC to go in and just snap up, not the SEC, the DTCC to go in and snip up all of the pieces of the bad hedge funds here. So I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything here. Buckle up, everybody. Conclusion, it is therefore notice pursuant to 806, blah, blah, blah. User atobitt. Okay, we need Austin to take a look at this. So I'm going to send it to him on Discord. This is huge. 801 passed. Oh, okay. So once again, we had the Thanos analogy. I think that's the best one that we've seen before. So let me pull it up again. This is ridiculous. Hold on a sec. 005. Let me get myself composed and then speak with a level head that right now we are feeling very, very good. Very, very positive about the stock. We've always liked the stock, but now, so 003 leads directly into 801. The DTC knows someone or multiple entities are in something deep, as in they have a very risky position. For example, a near infinite downside and want constant updates. And if they now they have 801 has the authority to snap those entities out of existence and get it over with. Basically, you have been teetering on either side of this tightrope that you've been walking. The DTCC uses 801 to push you off the edge because you're gonna drag everyone down. Essentially, they want to take your life vest off that is currently connected to everyone else's and then push you off the tightrope. Wow, this is starting to, okay. This is starting to make everything come into play, and is also aggravating because all of my DD about 801 coming into play is starting to now become stale. This is the problem with DD. Sometimes it becomes stale. Okay, let's actually read what the SEC is actually saying. Guys, do not get too excited. Don't get too excited, okay? So, on February 10th, 2021, the OOC filed with the SEC Advance Notice SROCC 2021-801, pursuant to the section blah, blah, blah. Let's see now. The advance notice was published for comment, so we know that they had this. They're supposed to sit on this for 60 days, right? Unless there was any objections, and that would have meant that 60 days from around February, that would have been April blankety blank, right? But now they are looking at this and seemingly passing it effective immediately. So let's see. OCC proposes to establish a persistent minimum level of skin in the game that OCC would contribute to cover default losses or liquidity shortfalls. Such skin in the game would consist of minimum amount of OCC's own pre-funded resources that OCC could contribute prior to charging a loss to the clearing fund. And okay, I want to see the part where they give the ability to actually liquidate. Punishing the minimum corporate contribution. Each application of the minimum corporate contribution. Da 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 da. Commission has adopted risk management standards under Section 805. As a reminder, guys, I'm not a lawyer, so my interpretation of this is not from a legal standpoint. Nor should it be taken as financial or legal advice. At this time, the Commission does not object to Advance Notice SR 2801, and OCC is authorized to implement the proposed change as of this date of this notice or the date of an order of the Commission approving proposed rule change 2021-003, whichever is later. It's if 003 gets approved or today, depending on which is later. Okay, then in that sense, I thought 003 was already in effect, but maybe not. Okay, I don't know why they would put it this way. It's kind of like, the only reason they would do it is if 003 is not also already a thing. Here, I'm going to add this to the description so you guys can look at it too. This is pretty big, guys. Okay, so, oh man, I need to go look here, look at new, just to see if someone else on 2 minutes ago, when the margin calls begin, no objections, SEC 801. So this is the GameStop version, our GME version. Then no comments. I was curious to the status. Did the SEC just say they have no objection to SR OCC 2021-801? I was curious to the status of this one and noticed that today they had an update to it saying no objection. So let's see. Shackaholic. Am I right to assume that this means DTCC can put this into effect as soon as today? So if I have this right, this rule can be implemented upon approval of 003. Okay, so 003 is not yet confirmed. That's the only thing I wanted to make sure of. Oh my gosh, guys, this is crazy. I think we have to wait until 003 to be approved. That's what I was saying. So 801 is no complaints. However, 003, not clear whether or not that's already executed. Oh man, Austin. I'm gonna text him because this is huge. This is crazy. So once again, as a reminder, what this actually means is that they now finally have the authority to say, hedge funds, especially the ones that have been cheating and lying to me, the DTCC, you are now going to be liquidated by me, the DTC, right? We are not going to take this anymore. Check Discord. Looks like 801 is passed contingent on 003. So this is actually the big one that we've been waiting for. Oh man, this is crazy. This is actually really ridiculous. One sec. Oh, I think. Oh yeah, it's noon. So we have Mason joining us right now. One sec. It's a picture of me. Hey!
Hey, how's it going?
It's Mason. Okay, so a quick question. I think the audio is a little staticky when you just said hi.
No, you're perfect. Am I good?
It's a little staticky, so one thing that I would recommend is, how do you fix Zoom's static problem? Try taking off the headphones. I'm not sure if you're in a room that can do that.
How's this?
Not much better. So here's a new idea. Put the headphones back in and then use preferences to change it to use your AirPod, your Apple headphones instead of the normal computer microphone.
Got it. One second.
OCC 003. Okay, so okay, people are saying in the chat, let's not confuse 003 with NSCC. Let's not confuse OCC 801 with NSCC 801. My mistake in jumping the gun, but this is still a huge benefit. Mason, how are you doing? Let me know when you can hear me.
Well, I don't know if this is better or worse.
That's the
audio.
ticket. Perfect.
Great. Doing well. How are you?
Well, let me first ask: are you following the DTCC regulations?
I've been following your digestion of it and
Okay.
dumbing it down for me. So, but I haven't been able to follow your videos in a little bit because I've been busy at work.
Okay, so there's one that was like explains everything. What was that video called? I'm gonna go find it. So as of right now, guys, don't go too far. Don't jump the gun on this. On the catalyst here. Mason and I are working on those 6 bullet points along with Austin Tobit for Congressman that joined us yesterday, right? If you guys are excited for that, then go ahead, give some scissors in the chat to welcome Mason. And once again, I think I only have 400 likes in this video. That math doesn't make sense. And you know Mason and I love math. So go ahead and drop some likes on that video so that people can find out more about Mason right now. So Mason, can you, for a quick introduction, take as long as you need, exactly what did you do in the congressman's office and what do you do now?
Yeah, so I've been serving in the congressman's office prior to now, no longer in his office, but I was an aide in his district office, so communicating with businesses, residents, their priorities to him, and having his Washington, D.C. office try to translate those needs into solutions. And so, you know, a lot of times residents or businesses, they might not know the solution, but they know the problem. And so that's what I'm looking forward to talking about here today. And it's his legislative office, their duties to be able to find the actual solution to the problem.
So in that sense, what are the major differences between what you used to do and what you do now?
Yeah, so now I actually got elected to the Sunnyvale City Council. It's a small city of 150,000 or so. I work on there. I pass laws locally and try to make the city a better place. And I also work with my day job as a legislative director for a council member in San Jose, which is the 10th largest city in America, and helping him to pass policy to make that city better. And so I look a lot at public policy. You know, you had Dr. Pippa on here talking a lot about public policy, how the laws need to change to be able to facilitate certain desires that the community has on GME or whatever it is. And so that's kind of my job is to work on the policy side to change the law.
Gotcha. Well, in terms of all these policies and the wordings of such, do you write certain like legal jargon and stuff? Maybe you can help us to interpret exactly what's going on here. Yeah,
so I'm not a lawyer and I am not a financial advisor, but
hey.
I sometimes the legislative aides will actually write the law. Sometimes, a lot of times they will write the direction, and then the lawyers at the city or the state or the federal government will do the rest. And so sometimes the elected officials say, this is what I want to accomplish. These are the bullet points of what I want to do. And then sometimes they actually write the bill, especially in the state and the federal government, they actually write the language of the bill. But a lot of times lawyers do that for them at the state level and federal level.
Gotcha. So just to remind everybody, we are here with Mason right now. Let us give another read through of the exact wording. Whoa, hold on. Of what we just saw. Don't let this go crazy, ladies and gentlemen, because as a reminder, right now we're just trying to figure out exactly how does this differ from what we already knew. But the conclusion right here is that the SEC does not object to SR OCC 2021-801 801, and the OCC is authorized to implement the proposed change as of the date of this notice today, or the date of an order by the Commission approving a proposed rule OCC 003, or whichever is later. So that language implies to me that they are waiting for 003 to be passed, because otherwise I would be like, it would be redundant to include. So that's something that I want to be able to just pass by as a gut check. But as a reminder, right now, we're going to try, we have a scheduled conversation with Mason. We are going to talk about those 6 bullet points and how to speak to a congressman. And then, of course, keep your eye on that chart. AMC has now returned back to $9.97. And over here on GameStop, we're just hovering right below that $180. And the power hour has begun already. I'm going to grab my AMC popcorn. And Mason, let us know a little bit about your ideas of how to talk to a congressman. How exactly have you gone through to him before, and maybe some examples of things that just isn't going to work?
Yeah, so I think the important thing to remember is that every congressman or congresswoman represents 1 million people. And so not only are those 1 million people in their district trying to get them to do things, but everyone across the world, right? And they sit on certain committees, and those committees have power and influence over certain subject matters. And so the congressman you spoke to yesterday, Congressman Ro Khanna, he actually sits on the House Budget Committee. And so the House Budget Committee actually gets the first crack at the budget every year and gets to say, we want to move the money this way. And so, like he said, he sponsored a bill to get more money to the IRS to audit the transactions that are going on through income tax. And so you could advocate to him that, we want more money to the SEC to enforce, dark pool regulations and all these things. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is to know that Congress does not actually control the executive branch of government. And so the president actually controls that. And so what I mean by that is the VA, all these departments, the SEC, all these departments within the US government are actually controlled by the president. And so it's the legislator's job, the Congress and the US Senate, to actually change the laws. But then it's actually the job of the president to change the way the departments operate. So enforcement by the SEC or other organizations within the US government are actually in the president's control. And then the third thing I would just say is you really got to dumb it down for the members of Congress, not because they don't understand, but because they have so much going on. And so 6 bullet points instead of, 8 DDs and 7 videos is a lot easier to go through. And the how things actually get done in Washington, D.C. or Sacramento or whatever U.S. capital you're in, a lot of times lobbyists will actually just hand the actual bill and or ordinance to the legislator, and then the legislator will try to figure it out. And so that's how lobbying actually gets done in our government.
Okay, so in that sense, dumbing it down, what do you think about the level of discourse that was yesterday when we were talking to Congressman Ro Khanna? Do you think that, I saw him taking notes at one point, I saw him saying that he wants to look into certain things. What do you think piqued his interest, and what do you think was a little too complicated?
Yeah, I mean, every person has their own, values and interests. And so the congressman, he actually represents Silicon Valley. He represents Tesla, ServiceNow, Apple, all these huge companies in the Valley. His district actually is the majority of Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. And so he's very interested in not only, having them be great community partners and give benefits to the community that they're moving into, but also regulating. And so it's the same thing with financial markets. He's very interested in, he's a Democrat by nature, and so he's very interested in people power. He's very interested in making sure that the wealth distribution happens, that we try to solve the issue of poverty as much as possible. And so you have to go at him from that angle. And so usually when you go into a meeting, you'll kind of know the background of the person you're talking to, and you're putting it in the lens, all the language that you want to use in the lens that they actually will listen to. Then the second thing is you got to really try to make the most of the meeting. And what I usually tell people is try to make sure you know what your ask is. What is your ask? And put that at the very front of the meeting, and then give them all the content. Because then they're focused on the solution and they're listening to all the background, and then they're realizing, well, that doesn't make sense because this thing should be that, or Yeah, that does make sense because of the way you're describing it. And so right from the get-go, you're already narrowing their frame.
I noticed that he wanted to have the answers right there. And
Yeah.
if you noticed in our 6 bullet points, remember, we're trying to use 6 bullet points to change the financial systems of the global economy right now through one congressman at a time. He was like, what is the solutions right now? We don't have any in our bullet points, but we will. We will find out the solutions, even if they're a little more drastic than usual. Speaking of drastic or intense, at one point the conversation got a little bit heated, right? To the extent that Austin said, with all due respect, we're gonna hold you to you actually reading the DD and all these other things. So some of the chat said that might have made him take us less seriously because of how the intensity and the amount of information. What do you think about my final proposition to him that, hey, if you're the congressman that actually does this, you're going to be the congressman that is going to be in all these documentaries, the one that actually puts himself on the map as, Silicon Valley's congressman that cared about the GME problem that saved the next 2008 crisis. Do you think he responded well to that?
Yeah, and I think every politician by nature they have to go after press and media to be able to stay relevant, and they want to make their way up the party and who knows, run for president, vice president, governor, whatever it is. And so I think that's a very good point to make to people of the relevance of an issue.
Hello.
The ability for you to take on that national dialogue and lead and actually be the face of this movement. From the federal side, that's a very attractive thing to any elected official. And so I think definitely he listened. He texted me during the meeting, texted me after. He said, please get me a one-pager. It doesn't have to be 6 bullet points, but please get me a summary of what the community is asking for, and if they don't know the solutions, what are the problems? And my staff can look into the solutions. And so again, Congressman, he's doing so much at so many times. There's so many meetings to go to. So his legislative staff, they all have PhDs and all these things. They are the ones who will actually work on the changes in the law.
Now we're actually cooking with Crisco, as Trey would say. We have not only Mason, who worked in the office, of Congressman Ro Khanna, but we have Austin Tobitt himself. What's going on, my friend?
Yeah, hey, sorry for being late, and Mason, appreciate you again, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Austin and I jammed all day yesterday and then co-hosted an interview with Ro Khanna. That was very cool. And I just asked 2 questions to Mason about, one, how do we actually get his attention along with every other congressman's attention? And 2, does intensity kind of parlay well, or does it make us less of a serious player in his eyes? But before we get into that, I really quickly want to ask you, did you have a chance to look at that article I sent you that the SEC just passed, 801?
Man, I pulled it up. I just saw 801 passed, and I responded back. That is, I'm skimming through it right now.
Now, the very bottom of it, I can just say out loud, it says, the commission does not object to OCC 801. That OCC is authorized to implement the proposed change as of the date of this notice or the date of the where the commission approves 003.
Yeah, I'm reading it right there.
But these are OCC.
003 was March 16th.
Yes, but these are all OCC regulations, not DTC. So I wanted to make sure that it's cleared up. Why would they have the same numbers if they're different organizations?
Okay.
Seems like bad filing.
OCC. Well, let me read to the top of this. What is this referring to?
I think the really important piece is the final paragraph, because it.
This is the Options Clearing Corporation.
Right.
Okay. Another facet of.
Well, while
so
you do
have the FICC, the DTC, and the OCC. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
I guess I'm just seeing
NSCC.
this for the first time.
So the one that we've been reporting on is the NSCC 801.
801, yeah. That's where I just saw 801 and I was like, oh my God. That's like, made my heart jump out of my chest.
Exactly. That's the one we've been waiting on so long. And even if this is the same bill or just a different flavor of the same idea, I just wanted to let you read through it, and while I ask Mason a couple more questions. But this is huge. So Mason, I have a general proposal of how we can get more Congress people hyped up about this. I think that if this 6 bullet points, hashtag 6 bullet points or whatever it is, gets viral, to get more and more people, congressmen or senators or whoever it is, financial regulators on the show and actually ask them the important questions. But first, I need to understand their incentives. So I was incredibly blown out of the water. I was really happy.
Cut out on this there.
Oh, I said I was really happy that Mason introduced Ro Khanna and then was able to have him join the show. Can you let me know what was his incentives to actually join the show? And he didn't have an agenda to push. It was very charitable of his time. So what was he hoping to get out of this?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I really respect about Congressman Khanna is he'll take the time to talk to anybody. And he really wants to understand the issue and he really wants to dive into it. And so I kind of described it to him very briefly. I was like, here, this is what the issue is. I know that you already did all these interviews on it. It's still relevant. You know, this community is well educated. They have their DD down. They know what the problem is. Although they might not know the solution. And so it's beneficial to you to go on, especially on Andrew's show. After watching your Dr. Pippa, live, I was like, really, like, this is great. Like, we need more of this in our society so that people can get educated on, okay, you want to see change? How do you do it, right? And the Congress people, they don't know all the answers. And so we have to team up, we have to work together to get it done. I think you were asking before you cut out about the, if these 6 points go viral, what's the effect? That's what's been done already on community policing. We've had, all these riots, all these outrageous events across the nation with officer-involved shootings, and unfortunately resulting in the deaths of a lot of people. And all these advocacy organizations have been saying, all right, here's the top 5 things we want to see every local police department reform. And it's a national dialogue that's happening, and everyone is focused on these 5 policies. And so if the same thing could happen for this or anything, I think that would be very beneficial to the cause.
So in that sense, do you think the question I'm actually ramping up to is, in order to get this viral and actually in front of Congress people, is Ro Khanna a actual representative part of the incentives that run rampant throughout Congress? Can we incentivize other Congress people the same way that we have for Ro?
Yeah, I think it comes down to lots of framing. We want to prevent another economic crisis where a major hedge fund that controls the financial systems as well as the wealth of a lot of the most wealthiest people in America from failing, because we don't want them to fail, because then, the whole system, it's a trickle-down effect. And working people will be the ones that take the brunt of the impact. And that's what happened in 2008 when we had all these mortgage securities that were, fake securities. They weren't vetted. People, everything in the Big Short movie that you saw. And so, I think this is very similar. I think it's not maybe as to the extent that 2008 was, but it's definitely, we have a broken financial system. We need to audit it. We need to fix it. We need to make sure that the average day retail trader can compete with the big money. And so it's an economic opportunity issue.
And that is one of the most important pieces, is that we can speak their language, we can walk the walk, but if it's not juicy enough to actually grab their attention, with the first 6 bullet points, right? Hashtag 6 bullet points, let's get this going. We don't know exactly how this is going to be able to be sticky enough. So let's start actioning on it. I know that we've been looking at the same Google Doc. Austin has already been adding to it. I'm noticing that underneath those points, you're already putting more bullet points. So that's good for the one pager, but I'm assuming we want to have 6 solid bullet points up on top. And someone already sent a super chat that said you should have the TD, the Treasury and bonds part as the first lead bullet point. So Austin, what do we have to say about that first?
Yeah, sorry, I was just still skimming through this, and I'm gonna have to take a minute to read it. But what this 801 sounds like is they're testing this in the derivatives market first.
Okay.
So what it sounds like is upon the occurrence of a default or a series of defaults, an application of all available assets of the defaulting participant to apply its own capital contribution to the relevant clearing or guarantee fund in full to satisfy any remaining losses prior to the application of any contributions by non-defaulting members to the clearing. Or I have to figure out if this is the DTC or if this is their way of saying we're going to apply all depository accounts to one default. I don't know. Surely to God, I'm reading that wrong, because that would not. So anyway, yeah, I haven't opened up that Google Doc, so I don't know who is adding anything to it. But
it's been Mason.
I was just throwing stuff in there from what I've read and heard. Yeah.
No, I appreciate
Gotcha.
that.
The clearinghouse reforms are definitely needed. You know, the fact that companies like Robinhood can just cut off a trader and also just use their stock and not, you know, clearly inform you that they're using your stock. That's really atrocious to me.
Yeah, well, so Robinhood is like making these decisions outside of, and that's another problem, because Robinhood has the ability to do what Robinhood wants to do, and if that prevents a broker from, you know, what the broker is doing to regulate the broker is completely separate from what the company like Robinhood or what they're doing. So yeah, now we're talking about almost completely separate regulations, sets of regulations. So this is what the clearinghouse has been doing, like the mother of all clearinghouses for all these brokers with the DTC. So they operate as stocks flow in and stocks flow out, and they have money coming in, they have stocks flowing out, and they're at the point of saying, we don't know who owns what. Yeah. So they're putting all these legislation pieces out with these DTC 001s and 00, every alphabet and every number you can imagine. And what they're saying is, we need to make sure that everybody has enough money in our fund in the event of these defaults. Now, the threat of that default is becoming very serious. And so what Andrew and I have been talking about is this 801 proposal that's going to be passed allows them to basically put all the power, what is it, like all the infinity stones, and then the 801 is like snapping the gauntlet, right? It says everybody needs to pony up and pay their account right now. And it looks like that's what this is doing in the options market. It's allowing them to start making sure those deposit accounts that are held with their funds are big enough to cover that event happening. So that regulation is already being proposed. In which case, it's almost like saying, instead of going to each individual broker like Robinhood or TD Ameritrade, if you go to the Hive and you change the way the Hive works, all the worker bees have to comply.
In line, yeah.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, we can definitely, I think that's a great idea, going back to what Andrew was just saying a minute ago about the, whoever said, you know, starting this off with the bond thing. I think that's a really good way of doing it. Instead of saying, hey, this is all about GME. GME has a huge part in this, but it's really the much bigger thing here that needs attention first is the bond structure and the way that the repo market is working.
I think if the whole thing isn't about GME, it's going to have a lot more credence in the first 5 bullet points, and the last bullet point, it can be like something else, and then we like the stock. Like, it can be just like a little bit of fan service for us, but really we need to get their attention in the first 5 bullet points of, this is the next 2008 crisis. Do you want this on all of your hands after we tell you that this is about to happen? Number 2, I think we have to talk about Citadel's role in this, right? I would say that Citadel specifically, with its shenanigans of we walked through your Walks Like a Duck, Talks Like a Duck DD today in the early morning live stream, and how you pay me to pay me to pay me, and then I pretend like all of the guesstimates on how much this Glenfiddich cost is actually just sales to me, and then use that as leverage. That should be something that we have as the number 2. So in that sense, number 1, everything short. Number 2 is Walk Like a Duck. Number 3, what would you say in terms of priority?
Yeah, so that's a great overview of Walks Like a Duck, by the way. So you have this hedge fund that operates in the dark, and they're doing all of these things where the hedge fund just makes things appear in these public vessels like Citadel Securities. And you don't really have the ability to paper trail that, because they can transfer stocks, they can transfer bonds that you don't know where they're getting them from, who they're doing these dealings with, and they transfer them into these vessels. And they have certain vessels allocated for each part of the market. They've got a vessel for doing futures like swap agreements. They have a vessel for doing repos. They have a vessel for for a lot of their treasury transactions, which like Citadel Securities does a lot of treasury transactions. But you don't see what happens when it gets down to those vessels and what transactions are being pushed back to the hedge fund. So these vessels can go through ways of saying we're making money doing business with ourselves, and the losses that those businesses are incurring flow back to the hedge fund as these administrative expenses, these different ways where they can hide expenses, which they should normally be reporting these on the financial statements of their company. Like you don't, it's essentially like Subway selling itself a burger or a sub, and then they're selling themselves a sub sandwich before they sell it to the customer.
It's kind of like,
why does that exist? They shouldn't be able to make service. They shouldn't be able to produce service revenue when all they're doing is just handing it to someone before they hand it to the customer.
and this is to hide as well as taxes. Are they trying to hide and save expenses on taxes as well?
So here's where the big thing comes in with what the EAs or the enrolled agents and the tax accountants are going to be doing. Whatever the tax consequences of this is treated completely separately than what the public accounting. So when you're accounting for what's going on with a company, you follow generally accepted accounting principles, and then when you determine the tax consequence on this, you use the tax framework, which is like the basically the rules within the IRS that are telling you this is the tax code. So you can account for an apple as an apple, but you can also account for it as an orange within the tax code. So that's a huge big red flag, because they could be doing stuff to hide things with their taxes. We just don't know. And again, that's because we don't have enough info on a 12-page statement of financial condition for an entire annual review of a company like this.
Well, it's starting to shape up like a government meeting, or at the very least, this is how productive tech meetings are. You kind of like say hello, there's something crazy going on for this first 20 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes we get really productive. But do you have a hard 12:30, Mason?
I can go till 1, hopefully. I probably got to jump around 12:50.
Woo. Okay, so we have another 20-ish minutes with Mason all the way until probably 10 minutes before power hour is over. So guys, make sure you guys have already given these two your attention. Smashing that like button early and often allows the algorithm to say, oh, these two should be shared with the entire Moon Platoon all throughout the galaxy. So Mason, what do you think in terms of, so switching it to you, we have number 1. This is 2008 all over again. Watch out, because repurchase agreements and all these other things, right? Number 2, Citadel is doing some wacky stuff, pretending to be themselves, selling themselves a sandwich. Number 3, what do you think that bullet point should be?
I think it's kind of tangent to what Austin just said. I think transparency in public accounting and live accounting, the two concepts of everyone needs to have the same knowledge and play off the same knowledge. It's not a fair game if someone has insider information, right? And that's already existent. It's just amending the laws to be able to push it into the 21st century. The second part of that is getting it into the 21st century. You could have live reporting, because the technology exists to be able to show these microtransactions that are happening every second, every half second, whatever it is, these algorithms that these computers are using to short ladder a stock, whatever it is. These should be transparent, posted every day, posted every week, whatever it is. It shouldn't be every month, right? And so we need to bring the financial system into the 21st century. That's something the Silicon Valley congressman would probably be really, incentivized to do, knowing that he's from Silicon Valley. He can say, I'm bringing Wall Street into the 21st century. That's
a great bullet point. That's a great fourth bullet point, is just go straight from, okay, this is happening here, but they've also had now 60 regulatory violations, many of these for the same thing over multiple years, and there's been no accountability other than just a small fine. I think that's a really good thing, by saying, like, not only are we uncovering this one piece right here, but we also say this has been going on for a decade, like all of these things. So maybe that is a good fourth bullet point, to say, like, the regulatory agency that we have, being FINRA, is noticing these issues going on and on and on, but there doesn't seem to be any accountability. That's what the SEC or what have you.
Yeah, I think enforcement is definitely another component to what I'd recommend putting in the bullet points. Is that it's great to have the enforcement mechanisms which may need to change, but it's also the capacity of the agencies to do the enforcement. Because what people don't understand is that government has been severely underfunded in federal agencies for the past half century. If you look at the budgets of IRS and all these other departments, they've actually gone down or they've stayed stagnant. They haven't, and population has gone up, so demand has gone up. And so the ability for these agencies to even go after these kinds of cases is actually very minimal. And you see that with our immigration system. There's a wave of immigrant applications. If you're trying to immigrate from Mexico, it's like a 20-year wait list right now. It's just our government systems are not in the 20%.
I would love to see a Gini index plotted inversely to the IRS budget, right? Like just how how unfair is the general income economy distribution compared to the IRS actually finding the money that is owed to it. Very interesting stuff, and that's once again the Stop Cheaters Act by Congressman Ro Khanna, who is spearheading that front. So let's go back. I think we bulldozed over. So 2008. Not never again. 2, we know Citadel is doing these illegal things. They've been dinged a couple of times, so that's Citadel has no close.
Themselves a sandwich. It was like the second bullet point.
Some sandwich. So walks like a duck.
Going on right now with them. Yeah.
Do we want to fit BlackRock bag holders or Citadel has no close in any of these bullet points?
I don't think we overextend. BlackRock was a very, although I think there was a good reason to make that conclusion, I don't want to overextend on, there may be speculation in there that gets the credibility of the main argument thrown out. So keeping it the way that it is, that will be uncovered, I will say. When this starts taking off and this is being looked at, there are people with better relationship expertise that can account for those. I think, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's stay on topic. In that sense, Citadel has no close. Does that work in transparency because of the nature of naked shorts and FTDs?
I think it does. So, yeah, the way that Citadel has no close was written was to say the balance of these obligations that they have to repay these positions is getting larger. And whether that's a volume increase or a price increase, the point is that the balance is getting larger, and the amount that they're setting aside to recover or repay that position, that short position, is based on shares that are supposed to be held at the DTC. So they don't physically own the shares. It's like saying, yeah, my money is I own my money, but it's being held at a bank. If a bank decides that I'm not getting those, then I'm not getting those. And so really that's where all of this is boiling into the DTC. Everybody is pointing their finger to say all of our rehypothecated shares are held at the DTC, and the DTC is now preparing to make sure that they are not holding the bag from all this. So that was the significance of Citadel.
So the number 1 is everything short, which is the do not let this turn into 2008. Number 2 is walks like a duck.
Yeah, we could say that too. Walks like a duck was yes.
Has no clothes is number 3, and that is also on transparency, right? We are going to be waiting in this live stream for the FINRA report, which is supposed to be updated today. It's updated every 2 weeks with a 2-week lag. So therefore, we also have the issue of no one is actually required to report your shorts as of the current regulations. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's the core of the problem. Is there's no transparency into hedge fund actions at all. They file a 13F, which tells them what their allocations were, what shares they own, and what their positions are. But we don't see anything with their short positions. So their short position could be nothing, or it could be 100-fold what their long positions are. The assets under management, that value is only reflective of long positions, not shorts.
Okay. And so, Mason, are you following along enough so that this makes sense to Ro Khanna?
I think we're going to have to dumb it down a lot more.
Okay.
I kind of know what you guys are talking about because I've read a little bit of the stuff, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to.
So I think this is 2008, Never Again. This is Citadel sells itself a sandwich.
So here, Mason, here's number one. You have the mortgage-backed security was causing all these issues in 2008. It's the same system, if not more corrupt, and they're just using the treasury bond now. Instead of the mortgage-backed security, they're just using the treasury bond. Bullet point 2, Citadel is performing actions very similar to Enron and very similar to the Lehman Brothers, and they're conducting these transactions with themselves in the dark without any regulation. 2, that's the severity of the issue. 3 is walks like a duck, talks like a duck. FINRA is busting them left and right for all of these violations, and they're just throwing up the plausible deniability. Like, oh, we unintentionally did this, or we didn't know that this was happening. That's 3. So you have 1, overview of the situation. 2, the severity and the risk that it presents. 3, you have this is happening. FINRA is saying that this is happening. And then 4, maybe the consequences, or do we have to walk through 2008 again? You know, you made a statement about this being like the severity of this being, 2008, and I think it's much worse than 2008. I think the same stuff is going on, and the only reason it's not 2008 is because the Federal Reserve cannot stop pumping money into the economy because they're buying back those securities, those treasuries. If the flow to treasuries stops, the country will stop. In 3 days, 4 days, the repo market doesn't churn for 72 hours, the country will stop. That's the severity. If you want to boil it into those 4 points, and then the DD is there to explain it, that's the cold reality of the situation we're in. And now, how does this reflect to GameStop? GameStop is the retail industry calling out Citadel for them doing this, because we know they have a huge short position, and other hedge funds that are doing the same thing have huge short positions on GameStop. And when we prove that they're wrong, the floodgate opens and the wealth transfers from them to us because we beat them on their bet. That's the fifth bullet point. That's the reason why GameStop is so suppressed in the newsroom now. The news is trying so hard to get this thing to pretend like it's a sell-off. And I've documented in all of my research that Citadel does this. They get caught triggering flash crashes. J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citadel. I've got links to all of them getting $12 million fines for doing this stuff, and they're doing it right now. So somebody has to raise the flag. This is more than just like, certain things are going on everybody's plate, but this is huge.
Yeah,
and it's happening every day. It's happening every day.
Does it really only need 3 bullet points in that sense? So, number 1, Treasury bonds are now the new mortgage-backed securities. Number 2, Citadel is the new Enron. Number 3, FINRA is already snitching on them. So FINRA knows that this stuff is already happening. What was the 4th one? Sorry.
4th one is the connection with GameStop being more than just a bunch of people that are running around saying, we like the stock. It's not that. It has nothing to do with that. It's become a meme where people are so confident in what we're doing that we're almost celebrating before it happens, because it's like, finally, this gives us the power to call them on their bluff. They shorted 140% of the company. There's no possible way for them to get out from that, and everybody knows it.
So I think
they can drop the price of the stock $10 in a day and it goes right back up.
So I think this one, first of all, just 100 likes away from 1,000, guys. Come on. The second thing is Alexander K says, don't forget AMC. I don't think we need to make it it can be a meme stock agnostic. Yes, so it can be meme stock agnostic. In that sense, we can just say number 4, AMC and GME, right? So this is, if you guys are here about the AMC. This also is specifically to support all heavily shorted stocks. All of these stocks are in this current situation here. So does this make sense? I think this and this and this are the actual points. Treasury bonds are new mortgage-backed securities. Citadel is a new Enron, and FINRA is already snitching on what Citadel is doing.
Citadel and all the others are the new. I mean, everybody's doing this. Citadel is just such a big force in it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think these are all great points. And what I would advise is that these are all problem statements. And so what we need to do in addition to those 3 bullet points is actually define the solution. And so you might not know exactly how government works and everything, but like what, in your opinion, is the solution? And then that way,
everybody that can do something about this needs to be brought to their attention. And we need to have a full and transparent meeting over what the SEC's involvement is and why they are not holding them accountable. It seems like they have transferred all of their authority on these matters to FINRA. And so FINRA has just become this, we're just going to cite you and fine you when you're doing these bad things. And then the SEC is supposed to be the one that holds them accountable to say, you did something, you're committing fraud. This is fraud. You're committing fraud. Why aren't we seeing these people go to jail? Why aren't we seeing the problem being fixed? And the SEC is the one that needs to be, the light needs to be shined on the SEC and held there so that we can figure out who may have conflicts of interest on the board of directors. Where are these connections coming from? If somebody worked at a hedge fund and you were up there as a huge executive, you don't need too many of those people before you can start to design laws that allow them to just continue getting away with this stuff. So this has to start at that level with the SEC. You have to go right to their door, start knocking, and have them open up.
Yeah, I agree. And we need to get all the members of Congress to do that. Again, the SEC is regulated by the president. The president's administration and Congress are separate branches of government. And so what I was more alluding to is the legislation that we want to see is for example, for the conducting transactions.
What you said was perfect then. And not to cut you off, man, not to cut you off. What you said was perfect, because if the SEC is ultimately being controlled by the president, take it straight to Joe Biden. Mr. President, are you aware that this situation exists? And if not, will you look into it? And he needs to be held accountable. And if he just tries to throw it off by saying this isn't something that I'm, or this is fine, or I leave it up to them, there's your scapegoat. And that's the reason why this is able to continue. So maybe it needs to go directly to him.
Yeah, I think both. Yeah, I think both. The president needs to get on top of it, and also the Congress as the policy-making body needs to change the laws so that we change the incentives and we change the way things operate in the actual markets. And because enforcement is one thing, but then changing the rules of the game is the second thing. And so I'd be happy to work offline with both of you to figure out the policy solution to the problem you say. But it's great that you define the problem.
Okay, so
I appreciate it. So
let's walk through with our last few minutes that we have with Mason and Austin. I'm not sure if Austin can stay, but I would be interested in talking about 801 with Austin after Mason is gone. So Mason, making sure that you don't have to be nice to us, by the way. Let us know that we're being too either technical without enough context or too aggressive with our statements, because the worst thing it would be if we were passed off as a couple of people with whiteboards and a bunch of lines and conspiracy theories. So we don't want to come off as that. We do want to be able to say ground this in 2008. I think that's a good theme, and for solutions to start pitching, right, for SEC to actually come in, we could have the actual question be asked, hey, do you actually have enough money? You can just go up to Citadel and say, hey, do you have enough money to cover these shorts? If you don't, you should cover right now and actually lower the bar for those margin calls, right? So I'm going to float that out. I saw someone in the live chat talk about margin calls are the key. So is that a solution that you think that a regulatory body or perhaps Congress can actually impose?
Yeah, I think Congress can say, if you're going to make these types of transactions, naked shorts, whatever it is, that you must provide a proof of capital to back it up by X date. If there's no regulation now, or the date is a month from now, and there's just a fine, and they're making more money off of short laddering than they are with the fine, they're going to keep doing it, right? And so you have to provide the proof. It's like when I go buy a car, or I go buy a mortgage, I have to provide proof of income. I have to give them the income statement. I have to be able to say, this is how I'm going to pay back this loan, right? And so why is the everyday trader susceptible to that, but big hedge funds aren't? And so that's a legislative change that can happen. Definitely. So you've defined the problem. Now here's maybe a solution that happens. I would say to the point is, again, for Congress, they deal with a million things. The more you can just hand them the solution, the faster response to them. Because then they can just run with it. And if you don't know the exact solution, but you know kind of where we're at, which we're at right now, that's even better. And so because the staff can take it.
Someone's saying that it should be called a 13-year repeat, Mr. Small says. That's a cool idea. Austin, what would you like to see in terms of like an off the top of your head idea for regulators to realistically take?
That would be great. This whole thing would not be a problem if hedge funds were required to disclose themselves just like public companies are. I mean, I get that they're private, and I get that the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, GAAP, they apply to public companies. And then you have an elective method of accounting for private companies. A lot of private companies will account for themselves as if they are public. If they decide to go public, it just makes it that much easier. But hedge funds aren't designed that way. Hedge funds are designed to be these money pools where you have so much influence to foreign exposure over the country. That's how all of the foreign influence happens within this country. It comes in through these private funds, and we need some exposure there.
I had to step in really quick. We had a comment from Yama Kenji who said, "You want the apes to write the answer?" Yes, I want the apes to write the answer because you have the answer. I really do believe that, and that's why I brought Congressman Khanna to Andrew. I said, you guys need to do a discussion. I think you all are doing the research, you know everything, and it's a lot faster to get reform if you all just hand it to someone to run with.
That is what I like to hear. So in that sense, Mason, what do you think? How do we collect these apes that are trying to write the answer?
I think, you gotta, it's great that we're describing the problems, but we're not acting on it. We're just, as a community on Reddit, whatever it is, we're complaining about things, which is good. We're educating people on what the issue is. But now, if you actually want change and you want the stock to moon or whatever it is, we need to be able to actually change the rules. Because that is what's going to actually change the system, prevent another 2008, and all these things. And so I don't, a lot of times people don't want to work on the solution, but they do want to talk about the problem, and that's great. But we also need people to work on the solution.
Great. Well, once again, correct me if I'm wrong, you are on the Sunnyvale City Council, right? Yeah. And you worked in the office of Congressman Ro Khanna. I am so happy that you have been able to share your time, and we're going to be working offline on this. Austin, if you do have time, we'll jump back on Discord to continue our conversation about 801. But once again, thank you, Mason, so much for joining us, and I'm excited for what we're going to work on in the future.
Thanks, Mason.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Yeah.
All right, I'm jumping off Zoom as well. I'm going to jump on to Discord.
Okay, call me.
And we're gonna be. I'm gonna put my AMC popcorn down. We are going to look at the markets. The last 10 minutes of which I'm going to now call Austin so that he can also hang out with us. Let's see. Did you guys like that? I think that was fun. Okay, so hope you guys enjoyed that with Mason, and now we just have Austin. Austin, we have so much to talk about right now. It is the last 10 minutes of the day. Just seeing a lot of sluggish movement, even less volume than yesterday. Let's check. Yeah, GameStop had 6 million in volume yesterday, not even 5 million today. So decreasing volume right now. Someone was asking, hey, what's going on here? We actually did cover this morning a good amount of DD about why we are not seeing the same amount of volume or even the same amount of volatility as we are used to in GME and AMC respectively. But if you guys are curious about that, I'm snipping that up. Gosh, my job has just gone a lot harder because YouTube has taken away the feature for me to easily snip up stuff. So expect at least another half days of latency on future snips. But I appreciate you guys clicking on those videos. Austin, what do we think about the 801 rule as we are now talking about it?
Yeah, man, I'm like a page and a half through this, and it looks exactly like what they're doing with the 801 for the NICC.
Okay.
Or sorry, did I say NICC?
NSCC.
NSCC. I'm getting my acronyms all swapped up. Yeah, it looks like that's exactly what they're doing. But instead of going to stocks, they're going to the derivatives market, which is they're saying that in the event of one of their members defaulting, just right on the background, a component of financial management, it entails a covered clearing agency choosing, upon the occurrence of a default or series of defaults, of all available assets of the defaulting participant. So they're putting so it can be plural. So in other words, if somebody trips the wire, or if multiple people start tripping the wire, it applies its own capital contribution to the relevant clearing or any guarantee of fund in full to satisfy any remaining losses. But that it says any remaining losses prior to the application of any contributions by non-defaulting members to the clearing or guarantee fund. There's two there. It can apply the members that aren't defaulting, and it can apply their balance, or B, assessments that the covered clearing agency required non-defaulting participants to continue following the exhaustion of such participants' funded contributions. I don't know exactly what the difference is between those two, but it sounds like the option that they're saying is if Citadel defaults, we're not only going to apply Citadel's contributions to our fund, we're going to apply non-defaulting members as well. So that's what it sounds like. They're going to go to someone else's checking account and grab the balance. They're going to have to use. If this is the case, then the exposure that the default market is at right now is insane. Why would they, if they know that? So here's my take on it. They start proposing these changes to say, if you don't have the amount of funds that you need that are needed to meet your short obligation with the NSCC, then we're going to start monitoring you daily. Okay, and it looks like they're monitoring their regular transactions, which are like the transactions they're actually having to report. Not their future transactions. They're looking at that and saying, okay, they're not able to meet the short obligation. So we're gonna check this in the derivatives, like the part that isn't being reported. So we know that they're not going to be able to meet their short obligation, and so we're just going to come straight out and say, if you default on any of your futures obligations, we're going to go into everyone else's fund and liquidate it to cover the loss of the defaulting partners. Like, they know they're not going to get the money quick enough, so they're going to liquidate everything they've got right now.
So Nicholas Gulak is, I think we're answering your question right now, but what does this mean for everyone holding a bunch of options on both GME and AMC? Will this stop them from naked shorting? It
looks like they're trying to do exactly that, to make hedge funds so afraid of being overexposed. But at the same time, it's like they're saying the people that aren't overexposed, your funds are now at loss or are now at risk of being liquidated because someone else isn't playing fairly. Dude, this is a bomb that you just dropped.
Yeah, it's a major bomb. And speaking of options, I was looking at Option Sonar while Austin thinks about this bomb. I am going to look at this right here. I'm going to cover my face real quick. Option Sonar usually has a graph down here, but you can just read it right above my face because the graph is down, but the chart is not. $51 million of deep in the money calls again. Seems like they skipped one day and now they're straight back to it with $15 strikes. So $51 million at 15, $7 million at 15. Someone is putting out these deep in the money calls once again. And it was supposedly not supposed to happen anymore after 005 was implemented in April 1st. In fact, there was even a post about that we read yesterday that said, hey, look, for the first time in a while, they haven't posted deep in the money calls for both Monday and Tuesday. Today, they're back at it. Which brings me to the question of the cyclicality of FTDs, right? 005 has supposedly allowed us to stop this shenanigan of refreshing the FTD T+4 to T+6. This whiteboard is no longer correct. However, originally I was then going to ask you, well, in that case, we have basically 4 days, right? 4 days-ish before they no longer have a way to cycle through this FTD refresh page, essentially. And now they're back at it. So this is making me a little bit curious about how they're still working at this, or if we had it wrong to begin with.
Man, I'm convinced that's exactly what this thing says.
Okay.
So get this. So get this. This is the second page. This thing is 12 pages long. I can't imagine. So what they're saying is their skin in the game. The component of financial risk. They know that they're at risk of the amount of losses that can arise by a clearing member default. So one of their funds defaulting presents a huge risk to them. So the way that they go through this is they say specifically our rules allow us to offset the defaulted losses remaining after the application of that member's funds. So after they drain the funds of that member, what it says is any remaining loss is thrown onto the clearing member's margin deposits and clearing fund contributions with their own capital in excess of 110%. So they're saying up to that point, any losses that remain are going to be assumed by us. Then, if there's anything left, any losses left, the rules also allow for them to provide for to charge these losses to the application of their excess capital or to OCC's senior management deferred compensation. So like the compensation, deferred compensation is compensation that you haven't received yet. Mm-hmm. It's like you're going to make, you have future sales revenue that you would normally recognize next quarter. What they're saying is if we incur any losses right now, we're going to take the funds that we're going to receive next month or next quarter and try and offset those. So they're trying to find any possible way that they can. This is like saying so it goes on. So they're going to do that, and then as well as non-defaulting clearing members. So dude, this is what they're saying is anybody involved within our fund, anybody involved with the OCC, which is the options clearing market. So what you're saying, calls and puts. Anybody that starts defaulting on their calls and puts, they know the risk is so big that they have to try and go anywhere they possibly can to find the funds to cover it. And they know that their deposits on hand aren't enough. So they're having to go to the people that aren't defaulting and get their deposits as well as revenue that they haven't even earned yet.
Jeez Louise.
This is like if this situation were to normally happen, if these people wouldn't have put us in a situation where they're so strapped and so unable to pay and cover themselves, if these people wouldn't have done that, they wouldn't be this desperate to post this.
So the SEC approves this contingent on OCC 003. So Matt Weiler is asking stock portion. So OCC options portion just got passed. Stock portion NSCC still hanging and 003 still pending. Once 003 passed Moon, Weiler is asking.
It looks like that's what it's saying. It looks like so all the pieces are in play, right? The DTC prior to this, the DTC and the SEC, or the DTC and the OCC, so the actual stocks clearing fund as well as the options clearing fund. Prior to this, there wasn't any real risk of the situation happening because normally the shorts would have shorted a company to death and they wouldn't have had to pay back their stocks. So they overshorted, and now that they know that this is happening and they can't get, because it's been months. They've been fighting this for 6 months. And so now they're just running short on funds, and the DTC is saying the deposits you have with us to cover that, You guys, you were supposed to have this under control, and it's appearing like you don't. So what they're doing is they're now saying any money that we can get our hands on is going to be used to cover these losses, which means the loss is going to be monumental. The over short exposure. This is like a smoking gun in the options market. This is like saying as soon as you guys default, everybody's game is over. Like everybody's funds in the deposit clearing corporation will be gone.
Even
or the options clearing corporation.
Even the innocent members of this.
That's the part down here that says the non-defaulting members will then be used after they drain the defaulting members' accounts. They will then go into their own accounts at the OCC, and any capital that they have on hand, they're going to throw at this thing. And in the event that fails, they're going to take future revenue that they're supposed to get in the future and then throw that at this thing. And if it still fails after that, all of the members, or actually the revenue that they're grabbing from the future, along with the current funds that they have, are going to be thrown at this.
So in super dumbed down ape speak, it's kind of like your uncle that seems like he's in a lot of trouble, right? He finally goes up to the family dinner and he says, hey guys, in the event of my death, here's exactly how I'm going to pay for the funeral. Here's exactly what kind of roses I'm going to get. Here's exactly what inch of plot land I want it to be able to be buried in. And you're like, what are you talking about? Why are you bringing this up? It's like, just in case I die, man. So this is basically
and
laying out.
On top of that, or it's like saying your uncle is going to die, and upon the event of his death, everyone in the family has to pay his illegal gambling debts.
Right. So if
like,
you were
it's not just contained to him. It now goes to his brother and his sister and and these people that didn't have any skin in this game, which is what the head of this is called. The background says, quote unquote, skin in the game.
So if you were a non-defaulting member, what would you be doing right now? What would you be incentivized to do?
I'd be incentivized to get my funds out of the OCC. And because that's where it stops. Where it's saying is like, if you have funds with us and somebody defaults, your funds are not going back to you. They're going to cover someone's default. And so people that have any deposits in the counters market, this is like the tsunami is coming and you can see it coming. And if you have the opportunity to get off the shore, get off the shore. And this is the options market.
So them doing that doesn't actually help us, right? The non-defaulting member is trying to get out of the OCC right now. That's not going to be helpful because then there's less money to pay for a crazy uncle's funeral.
It doesn't matter because anybody that has a short position right now is still going to be owed something. This is the margin call.
Right.
This is the margin call. And this is the OCC saying when the margin call hits, everybody is liable or responsible to pay it off. And that margin call means everybody. We are the people waiting for the margin call. We are the people that are owed the shares back. They owe us our shares back. And what this is saying is the billions and billions of dollars that we have. If the OCC is able to tap in funds from like the FICC as well as the DTC, like if everybody's the stocks deposit fund, if everybody's fund is one big pot, which I don't know about this. But what they're saying is anything that we have on hand is going to go toward paying the people who are holding short positions in the market right there and at that time. And the 801 that's being passed says it's going to happen like this. Somebody's going to ring that bell like this, and you've got an hour.
Speaking of ringing that bell and hours, the market just closed, and I was so enthralled in this that I didn't even notice. GameStop is down 3.5%, with even less volume, significantly less volume than yesterday. So this is the spring. This is us loading the crossbow back. Likely, when the 003 gets passed, we are going to see some major changes since this is contingent on it.
This is what this is saying is, as of sorry, I got to ping for work. As of this rule passing, anybody that they know that it's so close and they're so at risk of doing it that they don't have a way to generate enough money to cover when it happens in the future. So they're saying the money we have right now is going to be used to basically we're going to throw everything we've got at this to keep it from defaulting and to keep the shorts from having to recover all at one time. But as soon as that happens, as soon as 801 happens, this makes it, or soon as 003 happens, this can be passed and activated. And basically, yeah, all it takes then is for 801 to ring. So,
But only for the derivatives market?
for the options market. This is for the options market.
But only,
Yeah.
but this is still, so currently this was passed, and these are the OCC versions of the same regulations for the NSCC?
Yeah, so it looks like I don't know if there's an NSCC regulation for this.
So the DTC 003, I understand, is the way of identifying where the risky uncles are, exactly how to tell the risky uncles, if you lie to me, it's all over. You basically don't get access to my $1 trillion insurance package anymore. It's essentially identifying who is going to be guilty in the event that we need everyone to pay for your funeral.
Yeah, the kicker here that I don't know if the part that applies to them saying anybody's fund is going to be eligible for liquidation because your uncle did a bad thing. I don't know if that applies to the short market. What the 801 passing in the short market is doing is allowing them to call everything within an hour. But this going on in the options market could be. I mean, if something like this happens in the options market, I'm sure it would have to translate to, because everything in the options market is about shares.
Right.
So this is almost like saying we're going to trigger it in the options market because triggering in the options market should trigger it in the regular equity securities market, like the stock market with the DTC.
Right.
But if you trigger it in the DTC, it wouldn't affect the options market. I don't know. It's like somebody's going to have to come to a similar conclusion with me here. Not give me too much bias, but that's the way this is reading, man. The options market is subject to complete liquidation of all member accounts if someone defaults.
Someone says Risky Uncle sounds like a YouTube channel. I agree. If you guys are coming over from Matt's stream, or I guess Warden also just finished, so if you guys are coming from either of those streams, drop some scissors in the chat. We have atobitt with us right now explaining the most groundbreaking news that we've received in a long time, which is the OCC 801 has just been passed by the SEC, contingent on the 003 being passed sometime in the future. Hopefully, no timeline on that quite yet, but this is massive news. I also reported on the fact that we see these crazy deep in the money calls again. We were supposed to be through with them, but again, we have $51 million worth of calls at a $15 strike price, and this is something that has stopped happening since Monday and Tuesday. So we thought that the 005 finally was doing its thing. There's even a Reddit post about that specific thing. Always remember taking your DD and your regulations with a grain of salt. Maybe that's not currently working as of right now. Austin, what are you looking at now? Do you think is going to be the most important pieces of coming together this week?
I have a couple people in Reddit that are apparently, I think if somebody posted something about 801 and I'm being called to it to check it out. I don't know if somebody clarified.
I saw on those posts, almost everybody was tagging you specifically. So if you guys saw that, go ahead and link directly to this live stream because.
Oh yeah, he's just saying the status. Yeah, so somebody throw this channel in there because I'm explaining what this guy's post is saying right now. So he's linking to that document, and you can actually open up that document for those of you that are there. And so this was filed on February 10th, 2021, and it's posted now, notice of no objection to advance notice relating to, so it doesn't look like anybody's objecting to it, published April 7th, and the introduction is summarized as this: the Options Clearing Committee Corporation, the OCC, pursuant to this section here, blah, 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 and rules under establish a persistent minimum level of skin in the game that would contribute to cover default losses or liquidity shortfalls. The advance notice was published for public comment in the Federal Register. Go down to the background, next page on background. Skin in the game. As a component of financial risk management, entails a covered clearing agency choosing upon the risk or upon the occurrence of a default or a series of defaults. So what it's saying is we hold all of these funds in the options market for our members. If they default, we would normally go into their Easter basket and we would take some eggs out to cover their default. But this is saying in the event of someone defaulting or a couple of people defaulting because we don't have enough eggs in there, it's going to, this is right after in a series of defaults of all available assets of the defaulting participants to apply its own capital contribution. So the OCC is saying we're gonna go to your baskets first. If you don't have any there, don't worry. We're gonna go to our checkbook, and we'll throw out whatever we have at it. So they're applying their own capital to the clearing fund or guarantee fund in full. So they're throwing their full checkbook at it. So that right there tells you like, okay, there's a big risk here. That's like saying if somebody defaults in your business, you're giving the person that defaulted on your behalf ability to go to your treasury and take all of the money that you have to apply it to your loss. So that's huge right there in of itself. So you're going to use all of those to satisfy the loss of the applicate to the application of those contributors by non-defaulting members in the clearing fund or guarantee fund. Or B, assessments that the covered clearing agency require non-defaulting participants to contribute following the exhaustion of such participants' funded contributions to the relevant clearing or guarantee fund. So it is literally opening up everybody's Easter basket. So if you have 10 people, 10 Easter baskets, and the OCC says, okay, it looks like everybody's got enough on hand. If somebody defaults, surely they've got enough in their basket. But basket one starts to default. We're going to go in there and grab their eggs. And oh my God, it looks like basket two is starting to default. So we're going to grab their eggs. And the loss that they're having is so big that they say, okay, well, here's our checkbook. Cover your loss. But then party three could start defaulting. And in that event, any losses that are not covered, they're taking the remaining 7 Easter baskets and throwing them all at the losses. So the hedge funds exist outside of this, and they're saying, dude, you just liquidated all of our deposits, and we still have our short positions on hand. Like we still have significant risk to. So now you're saying if we default outside of you, you can't cover us because you had to cover the first 3 people that defaulted. That's exactly the way this is reading.
So the last person that defaults is what happens to them?
They have to go in their own capital. If they have to go into their long positions on their actual, they have to take any long positions they have and sell them to cover their losses. That's the only way a hedge fund can counter their losses. You have to liquidate assets. And so you're going to see sell-offs this is the negative beta, man. You're going to see sell-offs in the regular stock market, and you're going to see people starting to take those funds and cover their short positions because their shorts are going to be margin called.
So this is... Sorry, go ahead.
This is it. No, go ahead. That's it.
I was going to say that I'm just trying to dumb this down as much as possible for everyone who is currently watching right now. So if you guys are just joining us, the markets are closed, right? It was a boring blah day for GME and AMC, but what is now the seeds of the hedge fund pure destruction? Their deaths have already been planned out. Funeral bells are being picked out. We are looking at the OCC 801 being passed right here around us. This is the SEC official document that says today, hey, you guys are making us take on tremendous risk. This is exactly what you guys are going to do if one of you defaults, and how we are going to be starting to take down a piecemeal at a time from each of your accounts, because you're in this cartel with us, right? The family never forgets, right? You do Godfather a favor, this time Godfather screws you over. So one of the most important pieces that you have to understand is that this is not the same as the DTCC or the NSCC 801, and it is still contingent on one more ruling, which is the OCC 003, right? So until that
now, hold
passes.
on. So that's where I needed to check. So we're saying this is So it's here, it's a bombshell, but when is it activated? So that's where you were pointing out the very bottom is the conclusion.
Right.
And without reading any pages in between this just looks like it's saying, it is therefore noticed pursuant to Section 806 of the Clearing Supervision Act, that the Commission does not object to advance notice of SR-OCC 2021-801, which is what we're talking about, and that OCC is authorized to implement the proposed change as of the date of this notice or the date of an order by the Commission approving changes to the 003. So the 003 is actually an OCC as well.
No, there's a DTC 003.
It's OCC 003.
I know, but there's the original ruling that we were reading was DTC 003. So I'm not sure what OCC 003 is. It could be referring to the same ruling.
I bet what it is it's they published, and somebody that's on this right now can probably look it up, but so the DTC published 003, which said you're not going to be monitored monthly, you're going to be monitored daily, multiple times throughout the day. And that's like an assessment. Like you're trying to figure out, you're checking in with the babysitter more often now because the babysitter might not be trusted.
Exactly.
So you're watching my kid. I need to make sure that I've got access to you. And so this has been running it was past March 16th. So they've been running this for 3 weeks in the DTC. They've been running this 3 weeks, and now we're waiting on 801 to be passed in the DTC market. What this is saying is the OCC 003, I believe that's the same thing. Like we're going to check in with the babysitter, but in the options market.
Okay.
And what they've discovered is that after 3 weeks, because this is published April 7th, so it's whenever OCC was passed, it says February 10th. They filed this on February 10th. So that's exactly what it is, man. They pushed that out to check in with the babysitter, and now what they're saying is, oh my God, their exposure is so big that if they default, which it looks like they're going to do, we don't have enough funds on hand. So what they said at the very bottom is you can either wait until OOC 003 is passed, or you can file this on the date of this notice, April 7th.
Whichever is later, right?
Whichever is later, yeah. So today, if in other words, this goes into effect as soon as it says advance notice on there. So I don't know, the advance notice is therefore notice pursuant to 806 of the Clearing Supervision Act that the Commission does not object to the advance notice of 801, which is this one we're looking at. It doesn't object to the advance notice of this document, and that OCC is authorized to implement so what they're saying is, implement this now. The OCC is authorized to implement the proposed change as of the date of this notice or the date of an order by the Commission approving proposed 003, whichever is later. So it would have to be
after 003.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
after 003. You're right. So whichever one's later.
And it's always better to temper this with your expectations, guys. I know a lot of you are getting excited in the live chat. As a reminder, right, we are not lawyers, we are not financial advisors. We're here to be able to try and interpret this with us together. So one of the things that someone was reading in the live chat is that it seems that background is the section of what is currently already in the skin in the game is currently already a terminology that they use. That's why it's on the background. I'm not sure if background refers to the background of the proposed 801 ruling, or if it's actually background of like things that already exist before 801, but it may be that page 4 is when the actual part of the story begins. Just parroting a couple of like where does the actual rule begin.
So go in the background, skin in the game. This is what they're even if this is what exists right now, is what they're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so go down to 3, 4, establishing the minimum corporate contribution. The OCC proposes to establish a persistent minimum level of skin in the game that would contribute to cover the default losses or liquidity shortfalls. This skin in the game would consist of a minimum amount of their own pre-funded resources, of the OCC's own pre-funded resources, that they would contribute prior to charging a loss to the capital fund, and the EDCP unvested balance. What is the EDCP unvested balance? As proposed, funds compromising the minimum corporate contribution would be excluded from their liquid net asset fund for purpose of meeting their target capital requirement to ensure that they may maintain the minimum corporate contribution exclusively for default management. Something's fishy going on here.
Some people are saying, look at what the slog is saying. Mods capture the slog. Tell me what the slog is saying. Once again, as a reminder, guys, you are getting excited. This is great. This is the interpretation of 801. However, what is up in the air is, when is this actually going to be passed based on the conditions. There's only two conditions, either today or when 003 OCC 003 is passed, whichever is later. So as of right now, the condition is 003 passed? Probably not. In that case, it is not passed. 801 is contingent on 003 being passed, but everything else about the policies inside is a go. So imagine your uncle, once again, this analogy comes in, tells you, contingent on one more thing, I'm going to tell you exactly how who is going to pay for my funeral, right? So this is currently the SEC telling you everything looks fine in 801. We just need to wait until 003, which is slightly less pervasive, I would say, like just in absolute relative terms, than 801 itself. So I think that Austin is reading a little bit more.
Something they're talking about, I just caught something about jurisdictions outside of the United States.
Right.
So the OCC reviewed feedback received in connection with the initial filing of its current rules. So they got feedback from their current rules. They've got feedback from their rules concerning people in their industries and the stakeholders concerning this rule. Basically, they're getting feedback from people saying, hey, I don't want my funds to be exposed to someone else defaulting. So that's what that part is saying right there.
Mm-hmm.
And regulatory regimes in jurisdictions outside of the United States. So that's what that's saying right there, is there are these offshore funds that have significant deposits with their corporation, and they're saying, or with the OCC, and they're like, look, if somebody defaults, you're going to throw my money away. And so the OCC's current rules do not, however, dedicate the OCC's excess capital for use solely as skin in the game. So the rule that exists right now doesn't allow them to use their own capital. It just exposes all of their members' capital. Or guarantee that OCC maintain a minimum amount of skin in the game. So what they're saying is, up until this point, members have been complaining that their funds are being exposed. And if somebody defaults, especially these people in offshore or people outside of the United States, if somebody defaults, the OCC has never had to maintain a certain amount to cover for those people defaulting. So the proposal here to establish a persistent minimum level of skin in the game that the OCC would have to contribute to cover the default losses or liquidity. So that's what it's saying, is like, so that the hedge funds don't want to be the ones holding the bag. That's exactly what's going on here. Because up until this point, if somebody defaulted, the OCC was going to say, okay, this makes total sense.
Okay. Once again, whatever comes out of Austin's mouth, we are not lawyers, but go ahead, Austin.
No, we're not. Do your own research. This is just my interpretation of this. Just trying to figure out, like, based on the story, based on what's going on around us, the stuff that I've been pushing out in, like, the exposure of all these people having huge positions that it doesn't look like they can cover. Up until this point, the OCC may have only had like $5 in their checking account,
mm-hmm.
and all of their members had a lot more. So if their members each had $50 and the OCC only had $5, if one of the members defaulted, the OCC would say, hey, we will liquidate our assets, but after we run out of funds to pay your loss, we're going to pay it from everybody else in the fund.
Okay.
And what this proposal is saying is that enough people complained about that process to say, well, if somebody defaults on $50 and you only have $5, you should have more money before coming to my account.
Okay.
Okay, so it's saying like you should have hundreds of dollars to cover someone's loss before
Right.
you go to my account and start taking my money out of it. So that's the proposal, is to establish a persistent minimum level of skin in the game, or of capital for the OCC. That's what that first paragraph right there looks like.
The first paragraph
when I refer
in
to-
section, in the background section?
Page 4. So
Page 4.
yeah, so the background, I was thinking the background was the background of this proposal being skin in the game. But skin in the game has already existed. So what they're saying is the background is, this is the way that things have been done. If somebody defaults, I'm going to go, as the OCC, I'm going to go into somebody's Easter basket and say, okay, you defaulted. Looks like you only have a few eggs in there, so I'll go into my capital fund and try and cover for you. But if I can't cover because I don't have enough money, I have to go to everyone else's fund and liquidate it. So everybody was exposed to this, the uncle scenario we were talking about. The way that this existed up until this point was dad is the head of the family, or mom and dad are the head of the family, and one of the bad siblings has a bad gambling debt and they can't pay their gambling debt. Normally it would go to mom and dad. But if mom and dad don't have enough money, they're going to go to all the good siblings that have, good jobs and savings accounts and stuff. We're going to go to everyone else and use their money to pay. And this is all the good siblings coming to mom and dad saying, why don't you guys have more money in your account? Why do you have to go to me? Why you should have, if you're going to cover for the bad kid, you should have more money to cover for it. So they went to them and they complained about this. And so what they're proposing now is that the OCC maintain a higher minimum in their fund in the event of someone defaulting. So paint this back into big picture about what's going on, right? Let's tie this with a bow. All of these people outside now are saying, we know that there are significant hedge funds with short positions. All of the hedge funds that are out there know there are other hedge funds that they talk. I mean, it's everybody is getting into the same sort of stuff. You might have some people that are doing things different, but hedge funds that are shorting, if you know that a hedge fund is overexposed, they don't want to be responsible for those people defaulting. Okay? So what this is saying is, we're so concerned about this event happening like now that this piece of legislation is going to be passed either today or whenever this 003 filing is passed, which I believe the 003 is also saying the same thing, like the same thing as the DTC 003, which was, we're going to monitor you daily, multiple times a day now.
All right, here comes my two ape doesn't understand anything interpretation of what's happening here. Why are there clearinghouses? There exist big banks where regular banks or maybe rich people don't have enough money to actually do a thing. They need money to do things, mostly like buy things and other things. So currently, clearinghouses exist as a big pool of money that normally doesn't want to take a position on an investment either way. But outside of that one clearinghouse, there is a large organization that we're going to call the family. And the family is the DTC, right? The family is a cartel, basically, of these large clearinghouses. Everybody has money, and the DTC has perhaps the most money. OCC is an arm of the DTC. So the OCC specifically works in options. And to answer Berha's question, like, what are some market indicators that we could see to indicate that dominoes are dropping? So we're going to understand the incentives first, and then we're going to be able to figure out exactly what are the indicators to prove our hypothesis here. When it comes down to why does this huge like DTC organization even exist, it's to basically pool together everyone's money in case someone in the family gets sick, right? Someone in the family, like a risky uncle, has a really bad gambling debt and he's going to die. So currently, what is going on here is that this brand new pass that has been stamped with an approval, this ruling called OCC 801 that has been approved by the SEC, contingent on OCC 003 getting passed as well, is saying, hey, as of right now, It seems like the family is ill-equipped to actually take care of someone's death, or someone, or a risky uncle with a lot of gambling debt. So when you are going to see any of these uncles default, even if you didn't do any gambling or didn't do any drugs or have a perfectly healthy track record, if you're part of the family, you are on the line for paying for part of the uncle's funeral. And this is the biggest part of what we've been waiting for. It's essentially how to take the margin call and have it be one person's risk, and now have it be everybody's risk. Originally, it was for one person who is going to be a risky uncle. That's their nature. They're the wacky risky uncle. They're not going to really take that risk seriously. But now it's the good kids' risks as well. It's the goody two-shoes, it's the mom, it's the dad, and now they have to answer for that risk along with the uncle, which is changing everyone's incentives. They were the were the pool of money that made an even bigger pool of money. All they care about is holding on to that money. And now it's in risk. So to answer Burha's question, what can we do to know that this is actually the case? Do we have to see people exiting the DTC or the OCC in order for our hypothesis to be correct?
So the signs that you're looking for, 2 points on what you said. I don't see that it explicitly says like 003 has to be passed for this to be effective. So what this is saying is that we actually don't object to something that we were gonna push later. Or, it's like this is an advance notice. They're saying this is something we were going to push at maybe at a later date, but we're going to push it right now. And whether today's date or the date that 003 is passed, whichever one comes later, that's when this is going to be effective. But it doesn't actually say that 003 has to be passed for this to be effective. So if 003 gets shot down, then this is authorized as of 4/7/2021.
Okay.
So right there, and as somebody that may know, I haven't explicitly seen that in here, so that's why I'm saying that. And so two, apparently this skin in the game thing has been existing for a while. So what they're saying is like, basically everybody is rehypothecated and can be called in at one time if somebody defaults. So if someone defaults, everybody knows that they have a skin in the game, and that they're letting the OCC cover the default of one party with everyone's skin in the game because everybody is exposed. What this is saying is all of those good kids went to mom and dad and said, Mom and Dad, you guys don't have any money. So when you say, don't worry, good kids, we'll cover it if the bad sibling has a gambling problem. And if they can't cover their gambling debt, we'll cover it first. This is all the good kids coming to them saying, you don't have enough money to cover it, so you're going to have to come to us. So you need to keep more capital on hand. That's what page 4 walks through. That's the proposal on page 4. And that apparently is now like they didn't see any objection to this coming, so they went ahead and approved it.
Let's walk through page 4 for all of the smooth brains and dumb it down, because this is the most important piece. I'm currently looking at establishing the minimum corporate contribution.
That's it, and that's it. Like the OCC is a corporation for options, so they're an options clearing corporation. Just like you have a stock in the DTC, or let's say you have a short position with the DTC. The DTC says, okay, you have 100% of your short position. Let's take 1% of that and hold on to the money that you would need to cover the whole debt, and that's a deposit. So the DTC holds on to that deposit and says, if you default, we're going to go here first and cover your failure to delivers, so to speak.
Right.
This is a failure to deliver thing. If you get hit with these FTDs, we're going to go into that account and clear that first. Well, it's the same way in the options clearing corporation. The options clearing corporation takes a deposit of all the options that are floating around and says, if you have to clear your options liability, we're going to hold whatever the number is. It used to be, historically, it was like 1%, maybe 2%, which is actually quite a bit. But anyway, so they'll hold a deposit on hand. In the event that they default, the OCC has this skin in the game rule where if you default, that's the same story that we've talked about 3 times now. So So you have that going on with the DTC, which is the stock side, and then you also have this going on with the OCC. Now, the OCC is saying, in the event of that default, we propose to define and this is like right down here at the bottom of that minimum corporate contribution, because that paragraph is just saying that we're aware that we don't have the liquidity that we need to cover all of these shortfalls, and so we'd have to go to our funds of our good investors that don't have a huge exposure to shorts. We're going to have to liquidate them. So the bottom paragraph right before the line that says gain be a minimum of 25%, OCC proposes to define the minimum corporate contribution to mean the minimum level of the OCC's own funds maintained exclusively to cover credit loss or liquidity shortfalls, the level of which their board of directors shall determine from time to time. So they're leaving it with the board of directors to determine how much money. That's so vague. What they're saying is like, they're not saying like it has to be 50%. They're not saying it has to. They're just saying they're going to leave it to the board of directors to determine. Now there's a footnote here. Game to mean 25% of the central counterparty's regulatory capital requirement. It's just some additional stuff there. To facilitate the implementation of this proposal, the board approves an initial minimum corporate contribution at such level that the OCC's skin in the game, so the OCC's own, like, mom and dad's checking account would have to be 25% of their target capital requirement. Holy crap.
Is that a footnote on page 4?
No, that's the beginning, the top of page 5. What they're saying is, is that what they're saying? Is that going from target capital requirement sounds a lot to me like your total capital requirement needed to cover the capital requirement needed to cover your total balance, your target balance.
Okay.
So first glance, that sounds like what they're saying is the OCC is going to have to keep 25% of that on hand. Whatever their target capital requirement is, it's 25%.
So Nathan McKee, so this is actually an important note, and I think this is where it was going at, because I needed to logically understand what the past today or later is. That Nathan says whichever is later, I think, means that they're not allowed to go back and implement it retroactively to when 003 was passed back in March. And I know legally a lot of stuff can be retroactively, like retrofitted, so that it actually does.
So 003 being passed in March was with the DTC.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, right? The SEC is not the DTC. Unless, in case this was a big, like, whoa, hey guys, pay attention. SEC is the one that passed 801.
So the this is what I'm looking up right now. This is referring to notice of filing for proposed rule change to establish OCC's persistent minimum skin in the game. This is file number SR0OC 003.
And half the people are saying that the SEC is not going to vote on it until May 31st. It was supposed to be on April 16th, but then it increased 45 days.
This is Susquehanna.
Yeah, they're the only ones that have objected to 003.
This is the battle royale. This is like the battle royale unfolding.
This is so cool.
This is the battle. This is like.
Oh man.
These are legal documents being filed by the powers that, like, the biggest money in the world are having a legal battle with each other right now, saying it's not going to be my fault. Oh yes, it is. Oh no, it's not. Oh yes, it is. Like, the haste of all of these things being passed. They're too well related to the big problem that we've been talking about.
This is so cool.
It's the margin call is, dude, this sort of action. Like, I don't even need to read the rest of this at this point. It's just more it's not even confirmation bias. Like, that's what it sounds like. It's There's no other reason why you would say with why you would try and expedite it this fast if they didn't know something was about to happen.
Yeah, we even this morning, the DD was like, how long is this going to take? It's going to take 60 days from whenever this was, whenever 801 was actually implemented in the NSCC version of 801. It was proposed on like February 24th. Therefore, it would have 60 days, and then I would go to like April 23rd. And so that was the day that we were surrounding our expectations, and maybe it would even be bumped another 60 days on top of that. So it would actually go another 2 months later. However, it's happening way faster than we expected. I can't agree more.
Yeah. So again, I never put dates on anything, but the indicator to where you would say, like, if all else stays the same, the system would have to run the way that it's running. And because they're able to do so many tricky things, it could take a lot longer than it should. Like to prevent the squeeze from happening, which is, by the way, I mean, this is just like, it just keeps coming how much, if the short positions weren't big and the options exposure wasn't huge to have to recall those short shares, this would not be happening. There's no other reason for this. So the fact that we're still getting the amount of information that just like keeps pointing to that is huge. But if everything just had to continue the way that it was going all along, it could have been a long time. Like, there's nobody that said you would have to have one big person that lent out a lot of shares, millions of shares, to say, all right, I'm ready to call them back. And that could have triggered a domino effect with all these other people. This is going directly to the beehive, where all those worker bees would have to go to the beehive and get their deposit, or the beehive would say, no, this one little bee defaulted, so we're gonna try and cover their loss. What this is saying is, like, all the worker bees know the hive is exposed and is not gonna it's literally imploding. The hive is imploding and they don't have enough money on hand, and all these big hedge funds know it. Because all these big hedge funds know there's so much exposure to their short position that they're having to pass these rules. And it looks like Susquehanna is the only one that, like you said, if that's what that filing is for, Susquehanna's letter of rejection, then that's what this means. Like, the DTC is over leveraged, the OCC is it's all the same organization. You just have one person doing one person is doing bonds, one person is doing stocks, and then one person is doing options. But they're all passing the same type of stuff at the same time.
So
they know they can't cover.
I'm sure
they can't cover.
4,000 of you are wondering a quick summary of what we need to actually cover. This is going to happen after I go to the little astronauts room. I want Derek Law to come in and ask Austin a question. This goes back to BlackRock backholders a little bit. He's asking, will institutions like BlackRock be forced to use their positions to cover the shorts? This could hurt retail. Would you mind vamping on this for a hot second?
Yeah, so my whole thesis with BlackRock backholders was that personally, I believe BlackRock is supporting or supplying shares. Like, they have a 9 million shares of GameStop. I believe that Citadel operates in this system as their alpha, their main capital maker, by taking assets from asset managers like BlackRock or Kuwait Investment Authority, State Street Corp, just people that have a lot of assets, physical shares. I believe that they're taking those and lending them out to fund their shorts. And when they don't have those anymore, they have to go to other people. But what this means is that BlackRock doesn't have the ability to do anything with their shares until Citadel pays them back. Assuming that Citadel is shorting their shares, which I think BlackRock backholders makes a kind of a good case as to why that could be. But so two situations can exist here. BlackRock isn't shorting, or Citadel isn't shorting their shares, which means BlackRock doesn't really have a purpose for holding. Doesn't really have a purpose for. If BlackRock is not having their shares sold short through Citadel, then BlackRock doesn't really have a skin in this game. They don't, unless BlackRock has huge short positions too. which means that they're also exposed to this through the OCC and the DTC. So I don't really think that. I don't know. This just got so weird. Everybody's financial statements say that their shares are held on account, like the DTC. If you look at Citadel Securities financial statements, that giant short position that they have, where it says securities sold not yet, or securities sold with a commitment to purchase or something, which are not repos. It means I sold your security now, and I'll buy it back for you later. That balance got up to like it's like 50 billion or 60 billion or something like that. And so that's the liability that they owe. And then if you look at the asset side that's offsetting it, they say down at the notes of their financials that those assets that they're using to cover it are actually held at the DTC. Well, the DTC is now saying, we really don't have the money to cover your funds. So we have to go to all these other members and get their money. So if you default, we have to back your default by all of our other members. So this rule proposes that they, at least for the options market, that they keep a certain amount of money in their own checkbook without going to their members. Did that cover that? I mean, what was there something more specific about BlackRock there?
No, just making sure that BlackRock gets. We didn't give it the right rub when we had the 6 bullet points, so wanted to make sure that comes back to conversation. Almost 4,000 of you. We are going to talk about the summary of exactly what we've been having a lengthy discussion on. You are essentially viewing a DD being created as we speak right here. But as I just wanted to shout out a couple of the fun comments that I saw. Blaine is a beekeeper. I think also they said that they wanted to write a book instead of 101 Dalmatians. It's going to be 801 Apes. That's a good idea. Slugware says, thank you for your time and work. Mighty appreciated. Mighty Brow says, imagine you cynically decide to cause the deletion of a company that you can then profit from, except it backfires so massively they explode the game and everyone gets rich except you. Looking at you, Mr. Plotkin and Mr. Kenny G. And Pierre Eubank says, if Citadel is shorting BlackRock shares, doesn't that mean that they can't vote in the upcoming meeting till you get them back? What does that mean? Actually, that's a good point. Do you know anything about voting and whether or not you can actually vote?
Read that again. I was reading something else.
If Citadel is shorting BlackRock shares, does that mean they can't vote in the upcoming meeting until they get them back?
I don't think that means that, because so the way that accounting works is like you still keep that on your books. Like those are your shares. Somebody borrowed them. Mm-hmm. If the actual collateral, like if those shares and the representation of ownership transferred with them, well, that would mean that they didn't owe you anything because, well, it's off your balance sheet now. Like that's essentially giving somebody something. So the fact that Citadel still owes them back, it shouldn't take the shareholder powers to be able to vote and stuff away just because. No, because that means that at any time, if you lend somebody your shares, you can call them back at any time. It's just that these asset managers haven't been doing it up to this point in time, and I believe BlackRock bag holders, that's the case I try to make, is like BlackRock makes a lot of money using Citadel's position in the market as with their high frequency trades. So Citadel makes them a lot of money by running their shares into the market. And doing these transactions. So it's like, yeah, they can trigger a short recall or to pull all their shares back, but they're going to cripple their market maker at the same time in doing that. That's kind of why they're holding the bag. So yeah, you can make this moonshot where they have to pay you a bunch of money, but BlackRock's business isn't really like a revenue, like making money thing. They're in the power business. BlackRock has power by having all of these other hedge funds that are literally obligated to them. So if you lend out shares, you're literally making everyone your, lack of a better word, your puppet, because they're obligated to repay you those shares. So in a sense, in that sense, if that is true and BlackRock does have a huge short position, or Citadel has a huge short position and owes BlackRock those shares back, BlackRock's kind of holding the infinity gauntlet, right? Because they could be like, done. And you're just you have to recall everything. But that would mean that they would probably do that with all of their hedge funds. So,
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead. Go back.
I was gonna say now is finally the time. We've been vamping it for a while that we are going to now explain once again from the incentives. This is the DD coming together. The incentives of us as people who are long GME and AMC, the incentives from the DTC and the other arms of the DTC currently, specifically looking at the OCC here, and what they actually want, what the short whales want, and then I think we're good for now, right? There's also the innocent non-defaulting members. I think we'll add that as a final recap. But guys, if you guys are just joining us, we are here with atobitt. He has written multiple award-winning, basically he has enough for a whole book on the saga of DD for GME. And he and I have been looking at this new release that just came out today about OCC 801 being passed by the SEC. So very, very importantly, pay attention because we are going to explain it from that point of view. One, does it matter to apes who are holding the position AMC and GME long, and when will it matter? Two, what does it matter for the DTCs in terms of incentives? Why are they doing this? Why does the SEC want to approve this since this was proposed a while ago? And finally, what does the short whales think about this? Let's start at the very top. What does it mean for AMC and GME?
Yeah, so for AMC, GME, and basically any stocks that still have a huge short position in them, it means that your shares are going to be needed very soon because the proposals that are being pushed through the DTC and the OCC, the DTC is the Depository Trust Company for like stocks, and the OCC is the company for options, the options clearing company. What these proposals mean is up until this point, people that have short positions anybody that has a deposit with the options company or the stocks company, anybody that has a deposit on hand, you have a deposit because if you default, the DTC needs to have something that they can give immediately to help settle that instead of having to go to you directly all the time and say, okay, I need more money. So it helps keep the system fluid, right? So defaults happen. It's not a big deal, but when you're shorted to the point where you really can't cover if a default happens, that's when the DTC and the OCC are saying, okay, we might have to start monitoring you a little more to make sure that happens. So as a shareholder, you're wanting this to happen because if you're waiting for a short squeeze, this is evidence of the DTC saying, we know that the exposure to this loss is getting to be pretty big. In fact, the OCC, which is the options part of this, up until this point has this thing called skin in the game, which means everybody that holds a fund with us, everybody that holds a deposit with us is going to have a skin in the game if someone defaults. Meaning you, Andrew, can be investing with your brilliant investor and you still have that deposit with the OCC for your options. And I'm a much riskier investor. And so if I have that same deposit, and they try to clear my cover my position, I don't have enough funds. They're going to go to you, and you're like, I haven't done anything wrong. Well, it doesn't matter. You've got a skin in the game.
So let's circle back to AMC and GME and what that means for it in a later part of this conversation. Let's talk about what Austin is describing, which is what is the point of the DTC overall, right? It's someone mentioned it in the live chat. It's kind of like insurance, health insurance, car insurance. Some people are riskier drivers. Some people are riskier like eaters or drinkers. They all need insurance, and everybody pays for it through a kind of collective trust. It's like a commune insurance. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, it's more just to keep the system flowing because a failure to deliver holds up other transactions from happening. So in order to prevent failure to deliver, the DTC and the OCC will say, we're going to keep a certain amount on hand. So if you have these little blips where you all of a sudden can't deliver a share, we're just going to cover for you. We'll buy it real quick but usually that amount isn't huge. So this is really just like it is kind of insurance in a sense, but it's just it really just keeps the DTC and the OCC from going to the hedge fund multiple times. So it's like, you're going to default on a certain amount. At the end of the month, just give us a little bit more, instead of us coming to you every day and saying, hey, I have to cover for you. So that's how that relates. And if you're a shareholder of GameStop and a shareholder of AMC, up until this point, if they've had any failure to delivers, they would just go into those funds and then buy a share of GameStop, like the OCC, or well, really the DTC would buy a share for them to send to you. And then the hedge fund would come back at the end of the month and refloat that deposit account.
Okay, so now moving off of that explanation, what is this brand new, we understand what skin in the game is now. What is the brand new revelation that 801 provides for the incentives in the players that we just described?
Yeah, so this is the bomb, right? Because the current rule, skin in the game, everybody is liable for one person defaulting. The issue was, going back to the family example, if the degenerate child that's really risky defaults on their gambling debt, they would go to mom and dad would have to pay to cover the risky child defaulting, or the gambler from defaulting. And up until this point, there's this option where if mom and dad don't have enough money, they can go to the other kids that are doing the right thing. So if, the OCC in this scenario, OCC is just for the futures market, or the options market. It's the same thing for the DTC, but DTC is with stocks. So the OCC is like mom and dad for the options market. And if I default, I would go to mom and dad and say, hey, you guys need to cover my loss. And they're like, well, how much is your loss? Like, how much is your default? And I'll be like, yeah, it's in the like billions of dollars. And they're like, we don't have billions. We have like $5. We got enough to buy a Big Mac. I don't have enough to cover I don't have enough to cover law school, and so they'll say, well, I'm just going to go to Andrew. Andrew's got some money, and I'll obligate Andrew to cover. And so this proposal right now is saying, we've received a lot of feedback from Andrew, and Andrew doesn't really like the fact that he's exposed in this way. And so the proposal now is to make sure that mom and dad have enough money to cover law school or to cover a default, and you don't have to go to Andrew. And so the fact that you only have one person, one hedge fund, and it's Susquehanna, which apparently there's some other kind of sketchy stuff floating around Susquehanna. I know I've seen them tied with Citadel and several things. Susquehanna is the only person that objected this, because what this means is that mom and dad are going to have to start upping their cash account. So when you put that passing onto the 801 passing for the DTC, which means if we find out that you default on your stock position, like your stock shorts, if you default there, we need you to go into the market. You've got an hour to get it settled. So the fact that the options market is saying, okay, mom and dad have to have more money because the odds of defaulting is getting higher and higher, and you guys are going to have to cover. And if you don't have enough money, they still have to go to the other members, I believe. That's what it's saying. It's like nothing changes about the skin in the game. It's just the mom and dad have to have more money on hand.
So Too Long didn't understand, or Too Ape didn't read. This is a update to the very idea of who pays, right? Who is the one with the risk? Is it the one with the bad health, the risky uncle, or is it now everybody? And the brand new update is that everyone now is incentivized to help make sure we actually catch the squeeze before it gets out of hand, or at the very least try and get out of the OCC before that happens. So are we expecting members to try and leave their OCC obligations? And we already talked about it before, but just for the summary, what kind of indicators would we see to indicate that this is actually as going according to plan?
We're seeing the indicator right now. Avergos, default, Credit Suisse. These are effects of these things being passed right now. These are certain people that I think Credit Suisse So I saw someone on Twitter, some financial guy on Twitter said
Yeah, they had
Credit Suisse's loss was like 4.5 billion, and their annual revenue is only 1 billion. Like, that's pretty leveraged, and you're just one. So yeah, I think we're seeing that happen right now. And just to be clear, the update is like mom and dad could still go to the kids to get them to pay. That was the skin in the game. The update now is that they want mom and dad to have more than $5. Like, you're going to have to keep a minimum capital requirement, which is that page 4. You're going to have to keep more capital on hand if someone defaults before you come to us.
Okay. So in terms of final timelines, I think we finally returned around to AMC and GME. Ignore the rules. What does this mean for the average Joe who may not do the DD, who may not keep up with everything? What does it mean for them that are holding AMC and GME right now?
Okay, what this means, again, my interpretation on this is what this means is if everything just holds constant, pretend like none of these rules were being passed, and you're holding a huge position, or you're holding shares of a huge stock that's been heavily shorted. They have more tricks that they can do. They can trigger more flash crashes. They can try to convince you that if we say we've covered and then we tank the market and try to keep it down to $40 and do everything we can, we're going to naked short, do all this stuff, this trickery that we've done in the past. And typically that stuff works. So they can get the stock to go down long enough where there are enough people trying to sell because they're afraid than there are people trying to buy to cover their shorts. So it doesn't look like the price is going up. The problem is this time that's not happening, and those short positions are getting very, very costly to maintain. And so what you have is a situation where this is now becoming very apparent that these shorts are going to be called, and it means that they don't have the same option to just kick the can down the road anymore because they're trying, and it's been like 5 months. And so now the DTC is saying, man, and the OCC is saying, man, you guys said you had this under control. The hedge funds are probably just like, just give us time. Just give us some more time. Just give us more time. But they're not. They're out of time because somebody is going to default very soon. And it's going to be big enough that all of these other hedge funds are going to lose their deposits on account.
Big squeeze, baby.
Yes. That's why this indication is saying, like, if everything else was constant, they might be able to kick it down the road a little further. But now you're making it harder for the hedge funds to keep hiding their short positions because the DTC is monitoring them daily, multiple times a day, and they're realizing, like, the DTC and the options market apparently now too, like, just because it's the OCC passing something doesn't mean that the DTC isn't aware of the problem. You know, like, they're all a part of the DTCC. They're all a part of the same organization. The DTC just proposes a rule and says, okay, we're going to track your stocks. And then the OCC says, now we're going to track your options. But they're gathering data. They're trying to say, what are these hedge funds really exposed to? And they're finding out that they're exposed to a lot more than they're telling the DTC or the OCC. And this is the OCC saying, okay, or the SEC saying, if this happens, in order to protect the other people's Easter baskets, the people that are behaving right, the DTCC is basically, because they're the parent, they're going to have to keep more capital on hand. And something like that doesn't get passed this quick if something big isn't about to happen.
Once again,
so this to me, really quick, to me, this is the biggest indication. The content that's in these proposals and the frequency of them and the severity of them is like the biggest indication that something big this far. I don't want to put a date on it, but I'm starting to think a lot sooner than I thought before. It could still be a while, but guys, all it's going to take is for one person here to drop.
Max Liu is making a really great summary here. 2Ape didn't read the deposit requirement for shorting with options is going to get larger. Good way to put it. And finally, as a reminder, what Austin just finished with this summary saying is that, hey, they wouldn't come out with this. Your uncle wouldn't come to you and say, this is exactly how I want to die, and everyone's going to pay for it, if they weren't planning for someone to die. And
Yeah.
that's the main takeaway.
Yeah, beautiful, poetic. I love it.
So there you have it. If you guys haven't checked out Austin's other DD yet, we are going to have an exclusive one with him about rehypothecation soon enough. So go make sure to check out his work. His DD is linked in the description down below. And finally, as always, I do have to say, we are on our way to 100,000. So please do drop your subscribe at the door, because we would greatly appreciate that. And we're going to see Austin co-host a lot more often. We are looking at the FINRA report right now. And at some point since the last update, they actually changed from percents to millions. So I'm looking at AMC right now. It's at 49.31. I'm pretty sure that's what it was before. Let me actually pull this here. So that I'm pretty sure that this is what it was before at 49.31. And if you go over to GME, you don't know at the top of your head the short interest in millions for GME, do you? I'm pretty sure it's still 10.19. I don't think these are updated yet because they have been late, and it would be incredible if they updated it already.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even track numbers anymore, man. I don't even look at what numbers are being reported. I know that Citadel, just to name one, has been popped so many times for giving people the wrong numbers. And that was just so that they could make a little more money or maybe not get caught as often. And now that they're this exposed, I 100% expect that any media or any info coming out of them is going to be fraudulent, is going to be fictitious, because their end game is coming. Like the hedge fund end game is coming for anybody that was taking too big of a risk on these shorts.
What is FINRA's skin on this? Because weren't they snitching on Citadel beforehand?
So FINRA, someone brought up a good point to me earlier in a chat saying that apparently FINRA has like 80% of their portfolio is investment. And it's like, okay, are you investing in, or who are you investing with? Are you investing with Citadel? Like, that would be the regulatory agency that's popping Citadel with these little fines is also putting their own financial portfolio in Citadel. That would be crazy. So I don't know the exact connection in there and what's going on, but the thing is that FINRA doesn't really have, I don't think FINRA really has a skin in the game.
Right.
FINRA doesn't have a skin. They're just the regulatory people. There might be a hidden cryptic connection between, like, somebody at FINRA has a connection with somebody at Citadel, but yeah, I don't think they have a skin in the game here.
There was a great data set that we saw earlier today that was been posting on Reddit. It's like Quiver quantitative or some sort of data scraping tool that allows you to look at what senators and congressmen have been using in terms how their portfolios have been performing. But more importantly, it shows off-exchange volume for GME, and that was one of the other a little more data doesn't hurt, but that's probably scraped from FINRA. FINRA allows us to look at off-exchange, and that is one of the parts of the narrative that we're currently playing with. And I don't think your DD has ever really covered much of that. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, so FINRA, when FINRA becomes aware of something, so FINRA gets all this information from people like Citadel, and Citadel says during the day that it's like a time card, right? So pretend FINRA is the machine that clocks out the time card, and then Citadel works this day, but the time machine doesn't know how much you worked. So FINRA or Citadel can put down whatever number they want, and after a while, it'll start to be like, the machine will be like, okay, everybody's usually punching like 8 hours a day, and this guy's punching 9. Why are you punching 9? And so it might trigger this investigation, where FINRA will then say, give us a little more of your data. Let's have a little more transparency in your organization. And if they find they're doing something wrong, then they give them a citation. They give them a fine. But Citadel, and this was what Walking Like a Duck, Talking Like a Duck was all about, Citadel is now doing things that make it seem like the information they're sending to FINRA, by not including this no remuneration indicator and by posting internal transfers as like actual treasury transactions, they're making it seem like they're baking this cake, not like it's a junk cake or anything, but they're taking things that shouldn't be reported and hiding them in a way that will trick FINRA into thinking that the transaction is a legitimate external customer transaction. So FINRA, their numbers that they're getting from Citadel can be completely different than what the real numbers are, but sometimes it takes months or years for FINRA to figure out there's something fishy going on here. And even when they figure something out, they haven't been able to do anything because Citadel just says we unintentionally did this, or we would have known about it, but we didn't have a system in place to monitor it and alert us. It's like you guys have the highest frequency trading, or you have these systems that are designed for high frequency trading. You're trading the majority of like a large portion of stocks for the United States of America are traded through Citadel's or machines like Citadel at least, and you guys don't have the basic systems needed to flag this stuff. If that was a real big issue and they cared about it because they weren't benefiting from it, they would fix it. But the problem is they're benefiting from it, so it doesn't benefit Citadel to report the correct numbers to FINRA at all. And they've been fined for this dozens of times in the past for not reporting it. I'm walking like a duck, talking like a duck, man. It's the same stuff.
So which DD? So actually, look at these solutions that Boogie just put in there. So I'm gonna add this to the document. Number one, short shares should be transparent. Number two, weekly FINRA reports every Friday. Even that is like a step in the right direction, but still, it's kind of like moving from T+2 to T+1, right? Why don't we just make it real time? Why can't we just see the real shorts right now every day? And then number three is FINRA fines double per violation. That sounds like a cool like board game house rule. Like every
Double's
time,
not even nearly enough.
Double. Well, each time it doubles, right? So it's gonna go exponential.
Yeah, I mean that might.
Or quadratic.
It's like a 3 strikes you're out type thing, because if you impose like a, first of all, if that first fine is like 20 million, and it's like, okay, now you have to pay 40, and then it's 80, and it's 160, like, yeah, I doubt that you guys would be doing the same thing after 3 or 4 times, you know? Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
No.
But the problem is you need the body like the SEC to then say, you are enforced, you know, they have to have the SEC to enforce it. Like, because this is I believe this is criminal stuff. I believe that it's like an intentional thing. That's why I say it's fraud. They are doing this stuff to mislead people and then just saying it's an accident. And it's not.
So
that's a great place to start, though. It's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you, all, Boogie. So while we're on the FINRA site waiting for the report to update, let's actually talk about, since it is the third bullet point right here, Citadel has no close. Is that the one where we talk about the FINRA snitching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 58 violations from FINRA.
So
there's a report in there. If you go to that document and you type in short, like if you just go, it's like a 200-page document. If you type in, Control F and then you type in short and just click through the number of citations that have like either 1 or 2 citations will have short in it. But it'll say this one citation is for like 4 years. So they did this stuff for 4 years.
Loitering for 4 years.
Yeah, or just like not reporting a short sale indicator. So, okay, you're telling us this is a perfect example of that last question, is like the FINRA numbers, right? Or the information going to FINRA. All Citadel has to do is say this sale wasn't a short sale. And FINRA takes it and they do their calculations and say, okay, this is what the short percentage is. That's what S3 does. They do the same. They look at the same data and they say this is what the short percentage is. It's not like these people have access to Citadel's systems and they're monitoring the raw data before it's incorrect or unintentionally removed from their system. Does that make sense? So they can be giving them the wrong numbers this whole time and we have no idea about, which they are. That's what Citadel is all about, is pointing out those instances.
So when FINRA slaps these fines out, is the SEC supposed to do something?
I would think so.
Well, in that case, then
the SEC would, I would think that they would be like, okay, once, maybe twice, but after this, you're going to have to start opening up, like start being a little more transparent. And by the way, FINRA has received fines not incorrectly, for not supplying information. So it's like they're subpoenaing records from them basically to try and track their transactions. It has to do with a term called blue sheet transactions. They're trying to say, show us what the actual transactions were, and they're looking for like years worth of data. And there are times when Citadel will be like, will we go to jail if we just don't give them the information? And their lawyers say, nah, we can get you out of it, but this one's going to cost you a lot. And they'll say, okay, don't. And they don't supply the information at all. Mm-hmm. And so FINRA says, okay, this is like a $2.5 million fine because it's basically saying you are guilty, but you're not admitting that you're guilty. So they just get a fine.
It's like, where did you commit manslaughter? It's like, well, what does this dirty, bloody knife say? It certainly says a lot. Well, I'll never tell. Basically,
yeah. It's like the SEC knows you've got that bloody knife, and they're asking you for that bloody knife, and it's like you keep saying like, I don't have a bloody knife, and they say, well, we know you have a knife. Will you show us the knife even if there's no blood on it? And they're like, no, we're not even going to show you that. So they just don't provide the murder weapon, and they say, okay, well, we know you're probably guilty of this, but because we can't prove it, we're going to give you a bigger fine, and then go on with our day.
So it's crazy that this has to be one of the third bullet points, because like FINRA has put dozens of violations out already about like misconduct, criminal misconduct, right? So this is going to be like a kind of like saying, hey, SEC, did you know that FINRA is supposed to report this stuff that you should have looked at already? Because we already know the SEC tracks the FTDs, right? We have seen the SEC provide additional FTD information from maybe a couple days ago, a week ago. So at what point, you even mentioned that you don't trust the SEC. So when we were putting out these bullet points and these solutions, one of the solutions you offered was that it needs to start at the SEC. So how do you, I know it's conflicting, but how do we actually get something done if the SEC has the data that we need and we're just trying to tell it, hello, do you remember this information you already have?
Yeah, so it's like Congressman Rowe yesterday was saying we need to advocate for tax reform because the people that are cheating the system should be paying their fair share, and they're not. Mm-hmm. And my comment to him was immediately saying, you can go to the maybe 20% of people or the 20% of funds that you know and have them start to play better or to be more fair. But you don't know about the 80% of stuff going on, which is like the hedge funds, because you don't know what's in the hedge funds. So you can take a small step, which it's going to be a good thing if it happens, because it means people will have to be more fair. But it's not looking at the big problem up here at the top, which is hedge funds rule the world, and they don't have to tell you anything about it. So yeah, the SEC needs to be more involved and less connected with the profiteering from the hedge funds. The hedge funds do this stuff, and I think someone pointed out saying that FINRA does keep the fines from this stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, FINRA is owned by the SEC, so whatever. It's like that's like saying Citadel, the walking like a duck thing. Like Citadel Securities makes money, but Citadel Advisors doesn't recognize that at all.
Exactly.
Like, no. So you have to keep your child organizations accountable, but the problem is it's like the SEC is the parent, and they know that FINRA has like all of these issues, but they won't fix the issues of FINRA. So they're not being held accountable. So if you have to have one big thing that can go to Congress right now is like to do an investigation with the SEC and to figure out who in there may be benefiting based on connections with people that are in hedge funds. Or have there been off-balance sheet transactions where someone gets bribed? Like the bribing that could be going on for this stuff to happen is like, if you just keep turning a blind eye, we can keep doing our things and we'll just pay you for it. Those investigations have to be done.
So in that sense, it's more funding. the answer, because clearly Ro Khanna thinks that more funding. So this is what I didn't want to like say directly to Mason, but he probably watches this anyway. So Mason, what I didn't want to say directly to you is, what if Ro Khanna's solution is just to give the SEC more money, right? Because he's clearly the solution for stopping the cheaters is to give the IRS more money. Do you think that will actually solve it?
Yeah, and based on what I think it's at the point now where, like, if the people demand answers, the people are going to have to do it. And I'm working with a couple of people right now in a group that we've put together where we have a couple of representatives coming from different law firms that are choosing to remain anonymous until we have more info on this. But I've got a couple of people in a group with that are CPAs that we've been they're kind of lurking. They're figuring out, like, based on who's saying other things, not just what I'm saying. And they're trying to put this stuff together. In fact, it's something where the incentive there is to begin a class action against this. And if that's the case and this can be represented, the problem is that a law firm can't come into Reddit and say, hey, who wants to sign up for a class action, because that's solicitation. Right. So they need someone that can kind of push this and advocate this that has a following of enough people to say, hey, we were severely affected by this. Yeah. So, but that's the kind of action that's going to be required here to make sure that this doesn't get done, because as of right now, it's like, how are you going to keep people in Congress accountable if their best political play is to sell out?
Okay.
Or to just impose a bigger fine. So, but if you can give that to the people that are doing this, everybody that right now that's working in this group is doing this in their own time because it's right. And if we can get to a point where we can take these people to court, we know that we're not going to back down. We're not going to fold when they throw $300 million on the table to settle all allegations. We're not going to fold that way. And so in case the Congress thing isn't going to work as quickly as we need it to, those sort of groups we're going to have to take matters into our own hands, in other words.
So once again, from the bottom of all our hearts, please stay safe, because we do appreciate your wrinkly brain. At the same time, if it doesn't get me into super legal trouble, I think our friendship will carry through the idea of, if you need a voice box for a couple thousand people, easy peasy, man.
Yeah, no sweat, no pressure. I'm just letting people know that there are people that know that this is just as disingenuous as everyone else, and they have the ability to do things about it, and they're working on it. As far as me and my own safety, whether this becomes a thing where all of a sudden I'm no longer able to, for whatever reason, no longer able to keep kind of digging this stuff out, I feel like the cat's out of the bag at this point, to the point where, dude, there are enough people now that I feel like this is what Michael Burry's been trying to say this whole time. He just didn't have a way to kind of narrate it. The guy is so uber smart that he sees, like, the smoking gun, and he just posts the smoking gun, and people are like, give me some context. How does this relate to, what are you trying to show me? What are these words? And I think that's all that I've done, is just made it easier to kind of say, like, dude, this stuff never went away. And it's bad now. And you can't take that cat and put it back in the bag. You know, the word is out. Yeah. So this show will go on, whether I'm the one, you know, you had the building blocks of this with some of the greatest DD posters and the people that were getting us to learn about what was going on when all this short stuff was coming out. You had, you know, people like Pixel, Rensol, that was doing a great job just taking the information and just compiling it in a way that you could say, like, okay, make sense of the stuff that's being posted. And so those are kind of the soldiers on this front that are keeping these movements going. And so regardless of whether I'm here, man, if I'm not here anymore, just know that what I'm saying is true, and they don't want you to know it. And just keep holding, man, because these are big things that are happening right now.
I like Austin because he's willing to say it like it is. I'm going to say it in a slightly different way. Know that the truth has not changed. The data is on objectively our side. And so if you don't like the way that the data is stacking up, or you think it's too much of it is speculative, that's okay. The scissors in the chat are for the paper hands who want to get out. if you do want to stay in, this is the kind of community that we are building. Genuine people trying to research and understand complex legal and financial systems that you know for a fact that these institutions do not want you to understand. That's not a conspiracy, that's just truth. The smart people stay smart and rich by making it harder and harder for others to participate. So if anything you take out of this, understand that Austin is bullish, I am bullish, not on just GME and AMC, but on the fact that you need to do your own financial research and start building your own financial education channels. That's the way to passive income. That's the way to financial freedom. And the two of us are not going to give up on any of you.
Yeah, well said.
Not a dead cat, because the cat is fully alive and it is fully out of the bag doing a jig. How much time do you have? I know you're working from home.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pop off here real quick. But this was the reason why, coming in here, I wanted to make sure that I was a part of the bullet pointing for Mason. I have stuff in like actual life that I need to do, but finding out that OCC 801 thing, man,
big.
Like that's big, just in the fact that anything that has to do with someone asking another person to have more money on hand is massive, because it proves that your responsibility, the way that things are, your responsibility is not likely to be met. Like, you're not going to be able to meet your obligation in the event that this happens. So it's not like you're just saying, the likelihood of this happening has gone up, but you're saying not only has that gone up, it's also gone up in exposure. And so I can't ignore the fact that they just started monitoring these people daily. And even if what these hedge funds were reporting were half true, what they're seeing is enough to scare them into passing something like this. So the SEC must know that, that in the event of this default, there are enough people with the DTC and the OCC that are going to be holding the bag. So they're trying to keep the capital requirement as high as they can with the OCC before they have to go to those other Easter baskets, which means the OCC is underfunded to cover those liabilities, and that's big.
So
that's huge.
Once again, Daddy got no money. Daddy's got to go find some money, and because a risky uncle is about to die. And this wouldn't, even if you don't believe any of this, at the most speculative parts, just understand that this announcement is dire based on a group of people that need a ridiculous amount of money in a very short amount of time.
Yep.
Well, Austin, thanks once again for joining us. We are again going to have an exclusive DD with him sometime later this week, maybe next week.
It's hard when all this stuff, man. It's like every day it's like, oh, there's another good post, and it's like, this is another good post. It's so hard to feel like we've been talking about rehypothecation now for a week, and all this other stuff keeps coming out. So
the shelf life of a DD that takes like a week and a half, maybe like a month to write, is about 18 hours. After that, it's completely stale.
Yep. But yeah, I'll get in touch with you here quick. I do have to drop, so thanks again to everyone. And we'll talk more soon. But you keep finding stuff like this, throw it to me, and yeah, we'll talk about it. This one's huge.
I got you, man. Thanks again, Austin,
right.
And we'll see you guys.
We'll talk later. Bye.
We'll see Austin in the money. I guess that's the catchphrase. Once again, guys, for Austin, please go ahead and jump on into the subscribe button and the bell button. I know only about 13% of you actually press that bell. Those of you who are subscribed, it's because we are on our way to 100,000, and we would like to have you along, because that Tandy train needs to chug, choo, choo all the way through with you guys. Some people say that I have dad energy flailing around. That is 100% my embrace. Have you seen the way I'm dressed? I'm going to give myself a little bit more water, and then we're going to pay more attention to the FINRA report, trying to see if it can be updated within a timely manner this time around. The FINRA report has very recently, since 2 weeks ago, changed its formatting. It used to be in percentage. I seem to remember that AMC was hovering around 12%, and for sorry, that was GME. AMC was hovering about 12%, and GameStop was hovering around 40%. But now it's in millions. And when Austin was here, I was going to ask him. Hold on. When Austin was here, I was going to ask him, because his idea of the failure to deliver is that it's in the trillions. Right, so we're looking at 10 million reported short interest currently in GME. Ridiculous comparison when it comes down to the amount hidden from us. So let's see if this updates correctly. And actually, there's something that we can actually look down here on the chart and see if we can manually grab it, because FINRA sometimes updates slower. It's like full summary dashboard and the dashboard down below. Ralph Castaneda. Ralph is in the chat. Ralph is an ape through and through, ladies and gentlemen, right? Some people have to make certain choices. Some people have to make certain choices, such as me, who has to figure out how to get my camera back on real quick. But as a reminder, guys, apes do not fight apes. I'm going to get my face back on real quick. But please, if you guys understand anything from this show, it's that. Apes do not fight apes. Don't be immature. Understand that you are still in the game, and that's the thing that matters. If you're not in the game, even a better reason to be as mature as possible. While I add my face, I'm going to call this MacBook. Device, FaceTime. There it is. There I am. Hello. All right, so this is going to get pulled. Wait, hold on. We're looking at the FINRA report as we speak right now. If you guys liked that video, I'm sure it was helpful to at least some of us. I personally thought that was a very, very good one to be able to kind of give us not only hope, but a clear indication that the people that we are fighting against are flailing, that they had a couple of choices, they made some bad ones, and now, like, I forgot who it was, but someone said that they are now going to be one of the only people that don't end up making money out of this entire situation. So that's the tricky part, right? How do you end up trying to make a couple of bucks by doing a bad thing, trying to bankrupt an entire company, and then end up hurting everyone, helping everyone and hurting yourself? Okay, so let's see now. Robert Parks finally is asking, DTC's 2021 801. That's not the same as the OCC 801. As far as atobitt and me are concerned, they're not the same. Right, so this one is specifically for the OCC, for the options, right? Let's actually go through this a little bit closer to be able to understand, right? Establishing the minimum corporate contribution. This is upping the amount of money necessary for options, the options market in particular. So this is not for your regular buy and hold kind of shenanigans. Okay, let's see. Let me take a look. Oh, I love to hydrate, honestly. So, Harry, I'm not selling, is in the chat here. So, as a reminder, this just came out earlier today. We're keeping our eye, one, on comprehending this little document here, and the other eye on the FINRA report, currently updating in progress. So, let's look again. 10.19 million for GME, 49.31 million for AMC. Now, let's see. April 7th, 2021. This document, some of you were asking for it, but some of you may not have checked the description. It is the third line down in the description this entire time. On February 10th, the OCC filed a document, right? The OCC is a branch of the DTC and is nothing to do with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, right? This is the arm that controls like FINRA and other like government agencies that are supposed to be for reporting purposes specifically, right? And they even call it the commission. Very cool. Saves a little bit of ink, I suppose. This was on February 10th, and now they had a couple, up to 60 days. Up to 60 days for the other 801, the DTC 801, but I guess they are following that timeline as well. That's something that we should have seen in more DDs, honestly, because this is not 60 days, slightly less than 60 days because it's April 7th, so maybe like 50-ish days. Now they are basically saying yes or no. Complaints or no complaints. The jury comes back and says that there is no objections. They do not complain to the OCC 2021-801. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing, right? OCC 2021-801. Is that the same as the DTC, the one that we've actually been waiting for? No. As far as we can understand, it is not the same. OCC is authorized to implement the proposed change on the as of the date of this notice or the date of the order by the Commission approving proposed rule change, SR OCC 2021-003. Now let's make it as clear as it can be, okay? Commission. We know that that is referring to the SEC. So the SEC needs to approve SR OCC 2021-003. All right, definitively, this has not happened yet. Why has it not happened yet? Because it was introduced by the DTC, or I guess the OCC. So remember, the OCC is another branch of the DTC. I'll use them interchangeably. It was introduced by the OCC all the way back in February-ish. So therefore, it has the same exact timeline as the 003. Sorry, as 801. However, as some people have reported in the live chat, that date that was originally set to be somewhere between April 16th, before April 16th, has now extended to the bottom of May. So I need to confirm that, but however, 003 is the contingency of whether or not this is authorized. The reason why there is no way to jump around this is because it says Commission approving, right? Not the DTC, but the SEC. Drinking my water. Let me check the chat one more time. Need more balloon energy. Where's the is the balloon alive? Go grab the balloon, please.
Emergency.
Word on the street is balloons are the catalyst we need. El Randall, thank you for the ducks. So again, this is passed by the 801. Sorry, this 801 is OCC 801 is passed by the SEC effective when the 003 is passed. So why is this still important? It's because this is now going to be essentially the funeral catering, the funeral details of your risky uncle. So I'm not going to mix metaphors anymore. I'm going to focus on one, which is the risky uncle, because it's just hashtag risky uncle, very fun. This is essentially saying, hey, those of the family members that aren't the risky uncle, be prepared to have your incentives change almost entirely because of the fact that you are dealing with some risky parties in your family and people who are going to pay for the skin in the game, which is the idea that everybody kind of has to pay for the risky uncle and the other bad members who might default, which some people were asking about defaulting too, right? It's a very similar idea to just not having enough money to settle up an obligation. Kind of like your drug dealer going up to you and saying, hey, where's my money? Where's my money? What's his name in the room? Benny? Is his name Benny? Where's the money? Where's the money, Benny? Or I can't remember right now. But the point is that the amount of money that you now need to have on hand has increased. The skin in the game is starting to change the way that the family members treat each other, right? Originally, you were like, oh, I don't approve of a risky uncle based on his inability to understand good from bad, good from evil, and his incessant naked shorting, which is going to cause the entire global economy to collapse, but I'm not going to stop him. Now the rules are different because your risky uncle is going to cause you to, not have enough money for your college. It's going to mess your finances up as well, and now you are going to be incentivized to stop risky uncle. So let's see these hedgies, these innocent members of the DTC also come in and play with the new incentives here. Basically, snitches are now welcome thanks to the OCC. What? Balloon? Big balloon right now. Big balloon energy.
Okay.
No, it's too late.
Oh. Oh, the mod is asking for your permission to ban negative comments. Did you approve?
I think it's gonna taper itself out. I think the balloon fixed
Calm
it.
down.
Yeah, I think the balloon calmed down the chat. Thank you, balloon.
For ache brains.
Thank you, balloon.
Wait, bring out the banana. Come on. With the monkeys.
Okay, don't be sad, guys. Come on. Come on, you see 2 bananas here? Meatball, you see banana? Meatball.
Oh, he's on the couch.
Here you go, bud. All right, we are still a serious finance channel, so we are waiting for the FINRA report to update here. Let's see. Yes, I was referencing the room, but I can't remember where the money, what the character's name is. Is it Benny? Someone's saying that's a nice house. This is an apartment. It costs upwards of $3,500. It's very expensive to live in the Bay. Oh man. Ellen Yantis says, "Who is this chick? I thought you were gay."
What the? Don't make me come on there. Kiss him. Claim my dominance.
Mighty Brow says, "We are apes. Doesn't take much to please. Just balloon. Here, quick, get the balloon back in here."
Go.
Well, not that close. That balloon is from Valentine's Day. It actually might last longer than the duration it takes for these regulations to pass. Let's see. My dog just freaked when I did the dog toy. Great.
Yeah, you also have dog viewers. Remember?
Dad energy for real. Sam A says, "Can you explain what the report that we are waiting for, what will show, etc.?" We've been waiting for this every other week, basically since the inception of this channel. And that was my very first break when I was trending below like 3,000 concurrent viewers. That was the day I got like 5 or something. It was crazy. It was like double what I usually get. Homer Moon Hickam says, "What are the odds that FINRA report isn't even close and hedgies are covering in secrecy?" 100%. But once again, the important part about the FINRA report is that you need to understand what other people think the short interest is, right? You might understand that it is manipulated, but that's the same as like being able to not being able to prove the invisible man is the murderer all along, right? The invisible man with the one-armed man. You don't know. You have to keep your head in the game and actually understand what the numbers are for others, and in that way we can get inside their heads. But likely we've only been able to wait for it one time, the one live stream. So let's hold out for